Are we live now so that we can have a rerun? Okay. Yours. Yours, I guess, yours. Uh-huh. Oh, you can't touch mine yet, I see that.
Andy. They're just setting up the microphone. It's, they're setting up the microphone.
Mr. Johnson and Mr. Frampton, since we weren't being live streamed when we called to order and accepted the agenda, do we redo or we're good? We're good. All right, so we will call on Mr. Pruitt, who's wearing a lot of hats. May we get somebody over there to help you?
Yeah.
I have it. I do, yeah.
Okay.
I think we're good.
This is why Mr. Pruitt was recently recognized.
Thank you for your patience. Good evening, Board of Trustees, district staff, those that are in attendance tonight. We have a couple of recognitions that we'd like to do this evening. The first one, in honor of National Arts Education Week, which is coming up next week, we're proud to recognize teachers and educators from 11 Charleston County schools for receiving arts curricular innovation grants from the South Carolina Department of Education. These grants are designed to support high-quality arts education programs that help our students thrive in dance, music, theater, and visual arts. The following schools and arts educators successfully implemented grant projects for the 24-25 school year, significantly improving student achievement for the arts for our district. So we're going to go ahead and bring them in one by school. First, A.C. Cochran Elementary and Heather Jones. There are three, you can just go and slide right in there. Perfect. The next three from Ashley River Creative Arts Elementary, Olivia Bergen, Cynthia Hines, and Laura Riddle. From Hunley Park Elementary, we have Mackenzie Alexander. From Meeting Street at Brentwood, Jessica Seymour. From Meeting Street at Burns, Hannah Lamb. From Murray Lassane Montessori, Heather Teams. North Charleston High School, Jennifer Connell. Pepper Hill Elementary, Caitlin Gann. From Sanders Clyde Elementary, Stella Williams. And W.B. Goodwin Elementary, Tracy Harler.
The board would come down, please. Thank you.
Yeah, it's 7:06 tomorrow.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you. Congratulations.
Once again, please joining us in congratulating these schools and celebrating the continued commitment of Charleston County School District to ensuring that the arts remain an essential part of every child's education. Now we would like to present our second recipient of the 212-degree, the Extra Degree Award to Lisa McClary, the school nurse at Oakland Elementary School. Recipients of this Extra Degree Award will be those who demonstrate consistent excellence and extra effort. They go above and beyond in ways that directly improve student learning, well-being, or school culture. They have a positive impact on others. They embody innovation and initiative and identify challenges and take action. Recipients model the district's commitment to respect, equity, collaboration, and student success. On August 19th, Nurse McClary's quick thinking and swift response made all the difference when a student experienced a significant allergic reaction to ant bites while on the playground. Recognizing the seriousness of the student's symptoms, Nurse McClary administered an EpiPen, stabilizing the student and ensuring they received the urgent care they needed in a critical moment. Her calm presence and professional expertise helped keep the situation under control until additional medical support arrived. Nurse McClary's decisive actions demonstrate not only her medical knowledge, but also her dedication to the safety and well-being of every child in her care. In a matter of seconds, she turned a potentially life-threatening emergency into a situation of safety and reassurance. Even though the student had no known allergies, Nurse McClary was able to quickly identify and treat the anaphylaxis by using the EpiPen. Congratulations to Nurse McClary, this evening's recipient of the Extra Degree Award.
Anita, I'm sorry, did you stand right there next to the wall? Three, one, three. Perfect, thank you, congratulations.
And that will do it for this evening's special recognitions.
You laughed me.
Hmm.
You laughed me. You said,
Oh, it's supposed to be there.
no, you. Mr.
Next one, I'll forget.
I'm just. We will move on to agenda item 4A, the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. McKinney. Tonight we have several different things to share. We're going to start out with the spotlight, though, highlighting the great work happening over at the Early College High School, the partnership we have with Trident Tech and the Medical University of South Carolina. It will give Andy, it's up and running right away. That's fantastic.
Oh, it's a huge game changer because now they're going to be able to not only listen to me explain these different careers and educational requirements, they'll be able to talk to those professionals, they'll be able to see the facilities that they are working in. And then by partnering with MUSC, they'll be able to see kind of what their pathway is going to look like. So it's very exciting.
Each student will meet with an advisor. We'll have an advising partnership. So they have the counselors from ECHS, and then they'll have an advisor from Trident Technical College, and we'll lay out an actual pathway for each student to follow.
A difference about this program and something that ties in good with the format at Early College High School is that we get them to that point where they have that degree, and then they can choose any of hundreds of pathways in healthcare. A lot of our current programming with high school students is directing them towards one job or one career, whereas this one actually gives them multiple experiences. They get to see the landscape, and then when they get to graduation, they can go right into work. They're adding value immediately in healthcare, or they can choose advanced education or a specific career.
The MUSC program is a very great opportunity. It will allow me to actually see how the different fields interact in the medical district and how they treat the patients. So we actually get to the medical field itself, we'll be more prepared.
I am still excited. Like, I'm a select few of a lot of people, and I get to work with MUSC. Like, it's very exciting. Like, I don't feel just like, oh, wow. Like, I'm actually like excited about this. I've shared with them my lesson plan and how we can plug in different medical professionals to come and talk about different subjects so they can really see, okay, why are we talking about this and why is it important?
So when they're learning about EMT or CPR, they'll have a nurse or an ED nurse or physician in the class with them to teach part of that section of the curriculum. Moving forward with the experiences, they'll be able to bring what they're learning in the classroom straight onto our campus and be in that care environment.
Mostly, I just want them to be able to have a clear goal for their education, how they're going to get there, and, what their role will be in the medical profession. I think the more we can expose these students to different environments within, MUSC or different professions, the better it's going to be. And they're really going to understand and hopefully be super motivated to continue on that pathway.
My hope is that we expand this to the other school districts and actually become a model for the state to follow and hopefully in the future for other states to follow. This is truly unique and it's just a great opportunity for these kids.
When you think about that, when you think about our community, especially the underserved parts of our community, to bring these students in at an early age and have them gain this experience and then hopefully join the workforce is just priceless for the community.
We're really excited about this new opportunity. As you saw on the video, over 200 students applied for this healthcare strand, and it's something Dr. Cole, the president of MUSC, Dr. Vicki Wood, the president over at Trident Tech, have been working on with us for quite some time. Our staff did a really good job getting it up and going to really expand partnerships and really address the local needs that we have in a growing workforce where demands are changing. And as we've shared with you before, this opportunity with MUSC and Trident will allow various off-ramps for students, both aspiring physicians to aspiring radio techs to aspiring folks in the business administration, healthcare administration field. So we're really excited about this, our newest partnership with our third party advocates for kids. And in this same vein, these students will be working toward a bachelor's of science at the early college high school, different from what most students at the early college high school typically obtain. I see that Mrs. Denny joined us. Most graduates who leave early college work in the arts area. So not a bachelor's degree, an associate's, I'm sorry, Miss Denny. So associates of science for this strand and associates of arts for our other students. We're really, again, very excited. And I want to thank Dr. Kathy Gear, Mrs. Denny, various folks in our academic team, Dr. Clamp, who worked on this, and it spanned over to our operations team with Mr. Broey and Mr. Prentice. They were on lots of our meetings. We continue to work with them. The second slide here represents similar partnerships with institutes of higher education like Trident Tech, like our newest partner with Charleston Southern and the College of Charleston, with offering dual credit opportunities for our students. You'll see a slightly higher increase at the start of the school year this year, slightly, of students enrolled in dual credit. I'm going to grab that microphone from you, Mr. Reinbach. Thank you very much. Thank you. Again, just slightly higher. We do expect that, Mrs. Roberson, as the partnership evolves out at St. John's High School, particularly next year, these numbers will rise even more, and we expect them to rise again second semester. Part of Miss Denny's work is the focus on IHEs now, and she's really focused on Stall, North Charleston High School. We recently announced a new partnership with their Charleston Southern, and again, the growing relationship out at St. John's High School. So we're really excited about this. Increased numbers are a good thing. These aren't significant here, but increased numbers show more access and opportunity for kids. And that is what we are gearing towards as we look towards our college and career readiness. And in the coming weeks, the coming month, as the state releases its report cards and its updated data of students continuously enrolled in our system, you'll see how our college and career readiness rate is going to go up from even last year. And one such way for students to be considered college and career ready is to earn a C or higher in 6 hours of dual credit, at least 2 courses. Now, you probably said, like I said, oh my gosh, that number is low. I'm embarrassed to show it to the public and the board. The state's number is actually, I'm going to round up for the state, around 16%. This doesn't mean that only 25% of our students who take dual credit are successful. It means that at the end of 2025, 25% of students had both 6 hours and a C in that. Many of these students had only taken 3 credit hours of dual credit. Our schools are tracking with Dr. Eppelsheimer's leadership how students are successful in dual credit in order to make sure systems are in place like AVID at the early college high school to help students be most successful in obtaining this college and career readiness. So we're proud that we're graduating more students college and career ready via this strand. And again, this is linked to the video tonight because these partnerships matter. They help us in the ecosystem of support for kids. Andy, next slide. So now I want to share with you, we'll wait until after the report cards again and the numbers are no longer embargoed for SC Ready grades 3 through 8 to share with you in October or early November the actual results for SC Ready. But as we think about end of course, we're really excited that all of our students, CCSD students as a whole, outperformed the state averages in all 4 of the high school EOC courses. And you know those to be Algebra 1, Biology, U.S. History. Go ahead and go to the next slide here. You'll see them across here. And English 2. So if you go back one slide, Andy, I'm sorry. We're outperforming the states and the state in all these areas. And our scores improved in 3 of the 4 subject areas, as I've previously reported to the board. Biology actually saw a slight decrease. Now we'll go on, Andy. This data tonight, important for you to know, represents all students tested regardless of their continuous enrollment. So just some highlights to celebrate the results in the district. Again, we're seeing improvements in all 3 areas. Except for biology, we took a plateau, actually a slight decline of about 1.5%. We're outperforming the state in each area for all students. In a moment, though, I'll share with you where we're really focusing our time as we look at end of course exams, because not all groups of students, although we're seeing growth in all groups of students, not all groups of students are outperforming the state. So in algebra, 65% of students this year earned a C or better, which is 11.8% above the state, and a performance gap that is the widest on record. So we're outperforming the state significantly more than we have in the past in Algebra 1. In biology, again, you'll see here that we still exceeded the state average by 8.4 points, but again, you do see a decline from 55.2% to 53.9%, which again is, I don't even like to round on these things, is 1.7%. So again, work to do there. Dr. Temple, I know you're watching online. Rod Moore and his team have systems in place already to address that. English 2, 75% of students earning a C or better, again, outpacing the state by 5 points. In U.S. history, strong growth with 56% of students earning a C or better, more than 8 and a little over 8 percentage points above the state. Again, we aspire to make sure kids are ready, though, to complete globally, not just here in South Carolina. So this is the bar the state has shared with us now on the most recent release of all students. Again, we'll be very transparent as we release report card ratings in the next year. If you have questions about this slide, we'll come back to it. What I want to be really transparent about those on the next slide, Andy. And our teams have been working to make sure as numbers come out each and every day, we're seeing numbers populate so we know more about report cards. Did we get everything today, Buffy? Everything's still not here. I want to be really sure that you're aware, though, especially as we focus on WSF and the budget, we'll see increases across all of our groups internally when we release final results. But I do want to share with you that although all students are performing higher than the state's average and significantly in some areas, these groups of students, particularly students of color, MLs, pupils in poverty, not all of our students in CCSD are. And so I want to thank you again for your continued investment in the WSF, because you'll see when we break these numbers down by student groups in WSF that we've significantly increased in these areas internally. But as compared to the state, Black and brown children still underperform in most areas across the state. Algebra 1 is a strength you'll see here, and we've populated on the next slide real quickly, Andy. Go forward a slide. Here you'll see the numbers just broken down very transparently for you, from 24 to 25 and the state average, 4 groups of students. But if we go back, we've sort of provided a narrative prose here for you that you can see in Algebra 1, while Black and African American students improved from 34.5% to 38.4%. They're above the state's average. Pupils in poverty improved internally and is still above the state's average. And MLs improved and is still above the state's average in Algebra 1. You'll see if you go on to biology that the state's average for Black and brown students is 26.6. Our Black and brown students, again, internally showed improvements, but that's still below the state's average of 26.6. So we improved, and again, we attribute that improvement partially to WSF and the work, and all to the work inside of classrooms. But in all schools except for 2, Wando and Military Magnet, biology scores decreased in the district, in every high school across the district. And at Wando, there are way more students proficient. We have an excellent biology leader there than even in our other school that showed improvements. There's still less than 50% of students meeting at 50%. Pupils in poverty, again, internally improved from 33 to 34. So things to celebrate, right? But as we focus on how that compares to the state, it matches the state. And here, MLs decreased in biology, and it's still below the state's average. English 2, our Black students improved, again, internally, 51 to 53, so something to celebrate. Acknowledging, though, that Black students across the state are outperforming on English 2. Pupils in poverty also improved significantly from 58 to nearly 63%, and that's slightly above the state's average, but MLs again decreased, demonstrating that this is a significant area of improvement for us continually, ML population. And when we break this down for you by WSF, you'll see, wow, WSF is working. But again, we still have work to do. We started below the state in many of these areas. And U.S. history, again, Black and brown students improved internally from nearly 21% to 25%, but that's still below the state's average of 29%. Pupils in poverty improved, again, but still below the state's average. And ML students stayed the same, again, not significantly below in some areas, but still below. So we want to make sure you know that we're outpacing the state with all students, but not necessarily with Black and brown students and pupils in poverty and MLs, which is why the WSF investment is so very important to the work in the district. If you have questions about this, some of these numbers are right out of assessment and evaluation. We can talk more about them, or you can study them and email me and call me if you have questions about them. Again, this reflects all students, not necessarily continuously enrolled students. Andy? So what are we doing about it? Again, the WSF gives us funding, but to be very honest, if money was going to fix all the problems in the school district, we would have fixed all the problems in the school district decades ago. So there's a lot of strategy led by a lot of people in this room, Dr. Swearingen, Dr. Epplesheimer, Mrs. Foxworth, Mrs. Haynes, Angela Rush. Dr. Williams has exited. I called him out for taking a moment of personal privilege, Mr. Frampton, obviously. Folks over there also working. Again, high action, impact action and 90-day plans. 90-day plans are due from all of our principals on the 11th, this Thursday. And next Thursday, we'll have our first fuel meeting of the year, which is our countywide principals meeting, where we have an expert in that work coming in to work with our principals so that they can collaborate with one another on the 90-day planning process. This is one such process that Mrs. Haynes and her team have found significantly impactful as she led the Acceleration Schools work. And so it's one such thing that we've scaled district-wide. SLOs, student learning objectives. If you were part of the board retreat a few moments ago, you heard how the superintendent's evaluation sets the bar for the district because it's the board's goals, and all the goals cascade down. And those are going to be reflected in student learning objectives. So biology teachers, Algebra 1 teachers, English 2 teachers, U.S. history teachers will establish SLOs based on the achievement levels that we're asking them to obtain as part of the board goals. Again, increasing college and career readiness. We normally try to link these presentations, and one such way is the first thing we talked about tonight in the superintendent's report, which is dual credit opportunities and AP opportunities for kids to demonstrate readiness. We're also analyzing a lot of student work in professional learning communities, and through the data-driven instruction and inquiry process. We have an interactive student success dashboard out of assessment and evaluation again that allows teachers and principals to progress monitor the work going on in their schools. We're really focusing with the WSF on tutoring and extra support as needed. And again, as we think about a system of accountability, classroom walkthroughs, again, are aligned with the expectations that we aspire for every classroom, which is high standards-driven content delivery, assessment, evaluation, and reteaching as necessary. And none of that matters if kids aren't in school. And so we'll continue our focus on attendance. Dr. Coakley's team heroically leads that work. We're seeing a slight increase in district attendance, up almost 2 percentage points, 1.5 percentage points. Let me be very specific. This time compared to last year, where we've typically seen the lag in student attendance and where we saw the market increase after the first few days of school, particularly with juniors and seniors, particularly seniors who maybe Dr. Clamp hadn't reported school yet. That might have been a little close to home there. And pre-kindergarten, our early childhood students. We've seen a pattern with pre-K 3 and elementary grades being more attentive than middle and high school. And so that's where Dr. Coakley and our teams are really targeting their focus. Dr. Williams managing close attention to middle and high schools, Dr. Eppelsheimer. We do see a positive shift again, given our focus on this data and for 11th and 12th grade, but pre-K continues to be an area for growth because of our attendance regulation and laws. So again, you'll see an increase in attendance here, for which we're entirely grateful, and you'll see a breakdown at the bottom if you can discern between those grays and blues. And again, we're already talking about the work at hand this year, and we'll be meeting this Thursday and Friday with Marguerite Rosa, who will be here in town to help us talk about return on investment and how we continue to offer high quality opportunities without increasing the budget, without raising tax, make sure we serve kids well. Andy, I think that's all. Isn't that it? So, Mrs. Chairwoman, I'm happy to be finished and glad to turn it back over to you.
Well, that was pretty thorough, but are there any remaining questions?
I have a
Ms.
question.
Bailey?
My question is the 90-day plan for the each principal. For
Yes,
each
ma'am,
school.
Ms. Bailey.
Will you go over those 90-day plans with them individually or collectively?
Both. And so the associates are getting them Thursday. They'll review them first with their teams. So Dr. Swearingen, Ms. Mitchell, Dr. McCarthy, Ms. White will sit down with theirs, Ms. Simmons, they'll review those. I also have access to the shared file folder, so I'll be reviewing them and providing feedback. And then we believe that there's a lot of promise in collaboration. And so at next week's fuel meeting, next Thursday, based on what we see in those 90-day plans, Mr. Costner and Dr. Williams and I are going to group principals by what we're seeing in those 90-day plans for them to come together and be able to collaborate. And then we'll give feedback on those. And Mrs. Bailey, that's a live, living document that if it's not changed, there's probably a problem, right? Because you have to constantly monitor what you're doing and change. based on what's going on in the schoolhouse. And so we will be giving individual feedback, and we hope that principals will be able to grow and learn through collaborative process, sort of like a PLC for principals, next Thursday specifically. Thank you.
Is there collaboration in the feeder patterns?
Oh, that's a great question. And the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
Our first student data reviews are later this month, I think the 20-something, 25th maybe. Yep, yes, it is the 25th. That's the first one of the fall. So we start early, and we always use data to determine how we meet. And in the fall, it's going to be by feeder pattern. The last SDRs we had were by groups who had similar demographics. So schools that had high populations of ML students came together to collaborate, share, look at data, and make adjustments. But the fall will be across feeder patterns. And many of our feeder patterns already are doing that because they're used to the SDRs and they've seen the power in that. So last week when I was out at James Island, for example, they talked about the work that they're already doing together as a team, which is really promising to us. Great question.
Ms. Roberson?
Thank you. Ms. Huggins, thank you for
Yes,
this
ma'am.
detailed report. And let me acknowledge the progress made.
Thank you.
The growth that was made. That's a heavy lift. So thank you to the former teaching and learning team, to all of the associates. This was a lot of work. Now, having said that, I want
Mhm.
to ask, I guess, the $30 million question
Yeah.
from WSF. In isolation, CCSD did well by itself.
Mhm.
So when we compare it to the state, I guess for me, in looking at it, it seems the state bar is such a low bar to measure against.
Right.
So I don't want us to get stuck on
Absolutely.
the state and outperforming the state.
Absolutely.
Because it's a low bar.
Absolutely. Again, spot on, Ms. Roberson. And we even toyed with whether we should bring any data tonight because so much is still embargoed. And actually, I pulled the SC Ready data last week when we discussed it because we don't have a whole lot yet. But I didn't want the board, these things were on the monitoring calendar, so I decided to bring what we were more sure of now than not. But you're right. We want kids to be globally, not even nationally, but globally competitive. And so I'm excited that we're outperforming the state in so many areas. I would expect that. But again, until all students are achieving, we won't really have done our job. And so it provides us a standard by which to compare. The state does when they release their scores. We believe after the report cards are released in November, we can drill down and share even more. But again, lots to celebrate because one, we are dedicated to continuous improvement, and we're making continuous improvement. And we're seeing that all of our WSF groups of students, pupils in poverty, students with disabilities, and multilingual learners are improving. We would be really concerned if they weren't, right? Again, in regards to ROI, particularly when it was a $32 million investment. But there's work to do. There's work to do.
Let me ask about the 90-day plans.
Please.
With the data being still embargo, how are the principals able to get that information, use it, and put it in their 90-day plan?
That's a great question, Ms. Roberson. So from an application practical standpoint, I'm going to talk to the CAO and let the CAO answer that question because she has led that work both from the system level with curriculum instruction and still manages the special exceptional ed department and the multilingual learner. And she is hands-on right now with our elevation schools doing this process. So Ms. Simmons?
Sure. So The 90-day plan process is iterative. It's constantly changing, but our school teams have access to the data. It's embargoed for the general public, but the school teams have that information. They have their data. They know where they stand as a school community, and so they're using that to fashion their 90-day plans. Ms. Roberson.
Okay, got it. But, I looked at my schools.
Yes, ma'am.
Data, and I saw that one of my elementary schools made, double-digit gains.
Minnie Hughes and Ellington.
And Ellen.
Yes,
exactly,
ma'am.
Yes. So I'm just wondering, are they going to make targeted?
So, right, to your
Strategies,
earlier
yes.
question about judging ourselves against the state standard. So that's just one indicator or one measure. We tend to measure ourselves in threefold. Against the goals we set, the standard we set for ourselves, how we did the previous year, and against the state. And so the school teams are doing just that. They're taking the indicators that they have right now, we call them leading indicators because the data is so new and so fresh, and using that to traject out as a trajectory, where do we want them to be in a year? Where do we want them to be in 5 years? And so that's the goal of this work in terms of continuous improvement, that schools are always seeking, looking, aiming to get better each
Right.
year.
And my final
Sam.
question, if I have 34 seconds, my final question would be, can you share some of the questions that you will ask Dr. Rosa on Thursday, looking at the data, the 90-day plans? How are we going to use her differently this time?
That's a great question. I'm gonna, Mr. Costner, do you want to answer that? Hold on, let me get you a microphone.
Let me use this. That's good, I can use this.
Might as well come up.
So- Come on up. Thank you for that question. So last year when she came, it was all around where are we at with implementation? And how can we utilize what we've known in half of a year to really kind of set us up for success in second semester. This time around, we've done it for a whole year. We have some really good SE ready data and some EOC data that we can look at. It's all around how are we progress monitoring it so we're not waiting until January to make some of these assumptions. How do we utilize some of our benchmark data to see are we making progress towards our goals, towards our 90-day plan goals? That's really how I think we're going to utilize her this time around. But the associates, I know we may have some other questions for her. Any of y'all have any questions?
I'm just wondering, do we challenge Dr. Rosa to say, we are looking to make double-digit gains? What are your recommendations?
Yes, she actually has access to our Tableau now. And so she can manipulate the data herself. And she sent me several pointed emails about and she really, our principals, some of them call her Judge Judy, and we gave her a gavel because she's very blunt about the data and the challenges associated and what they're doing with the monies to really advance student outcomes. And so she's an economist by trade, not necessarily an educator, but she is very bright and is able to say, listen, this is working pretty well based on what you've invested, and this just is not. And so Ellen Weaver and some folks at the State Department are coming to learn with us. We've got some other superintendents coming to learn with us, and we do think she's going to challenge us in new ways. All of our principals will attend, and lots of our teacher leaders are going to be involved this time, which is different
Okay.
from last time.
Ms.
Great
Megan,
questions, Ms. Rhodes.
That would be data-driven analytics, stuff I'm learning about actually right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She uses real-time data to really challenge our thinking on how we're doing things. And we need that. Yes, Dr.
I
Clamp.
just had something. We also have a number of new principals who were not able to experience professional development last year. Either they were in a role as an assistant principal, they were outside of the district. So we really hope to capitalize on for them to get up to speed to where our current principals are and really elevate that work moving forward through the first quarter and into the first semester.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson.
Thank you. Ms. Watley, thank you. So going back to the video that you showed us
Yes,
with the
ma'am.
early college, I was very happy to see the children using the HR, VR, and even
Yes.
the potential of hologram. This is something, as soon as I was elected, I started, as you know, trying to work with Mr. Kennedy and you and
Mhm.
district staff to employ in K through 12, because right after our election,
that was not something that was being used in the United States, but it
Right.
was being used in the UK. So I see that, I'm assuming that's coming in with MUSC and their technology.
And Trident Tech. Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes,
so my
ma'am.
next question to that is, if we're using it in that capacity, I want to circle back again to the original conversation that I approached you about. Can we maybe work with, since Mr. Darby is a principal at our innovation school and we gave him special status to try things that are different, can we do a pilot program there to see the impact that using that technology can have on children? Because it's a different way to introduce them to these concepts that some of them are struggling to grasp. But
It's a great.
especially like, because you can set up the curriculum to have like Booker Washington come and introduce himself and take a history tour and even go through English through exploring the founding documents and things like that. And even architecture through geometry and mathematics and things like that, and have an immersive experience to help them learn versus just trying to learn from a book.
It's amazing what opportunities are available to kids now. I'm not aging any of you, but things have changed a lot since any of us were in school. But Mrs. Watley, Dr. Epplesheimer and I will talk with Mr. Gordon about just that and seeing what we can do to offer to not only Mr. Darby, but to other high school principals as well. So Dr. Epp, if you'll note that. Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Watley. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions from Ms. Lieber?
Well, first, the presentation in the board docs is not what she gave. So it might be just, it's a small little.
It should be now. It's been updated with the latest numbers. It should be now.
Yeah,
Mrs.
the
Lieber.
last page didn't have the columns. That's all. It's the only
Okay,
thing
we'll
I
make
did.
sure. I don't know what happened there, but Trudy will make sure. We thought we double checked everything right before we came out, but we
So-
might have fallen short. There are a lot of uploads today.
Totally understand. So as a strategic education liaison, I've gotten the really exciting benefit to actually review some of the presentations, and I'm feeling a little jealous. I didn't get to actually look at this one because I've and actually make a note, because I do like in ditto to Ms. Robinson is to look at national
Absolutely, absolutely.
things. But then, I'm very fond of the scatter plots and looking at data. Once you understand them, it speaks a lot better than words does. And I go back to the monitoring report that we do on an annual basis.
Mhm.
Is it typical for the data to be embargoed? And are we misaligning ourselves by presenting data early, whereas we should be waiting till I want to make the board and the community efficient in the way.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point. It's embargoed like this every year, and sometimes it's embargoed later than they even tell us it's going to be. Like today, we were supposed to get information on report cards preliminarily, and we didn't receive it. So we have to be patient. Like Ms. Simmons said, we can estimate to a certain extent our own data within a couple of percentage points. And so we try to be really cautious about what we present publicly, but these numbers should stay pretty consistent. We'll break them down as far as WSF and all once the report cards are released in October.
Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Jewett.
I just had one more.
Well,
I could
you've
wait.
had let me give everybody else a first chance.
So I was going to go back to the video. I love the early college.
Yes, ma'am.
But I do have to continue to ask
Yeah.
that it be something that all of our students maybe have the opportunity for, because
Yeah.
that it's not in Mount Pleasant, and there are a lot of kids there that could really benefit from them, specifically D1 that is asking for.
So that is a really great.
Because I, when they announced this, I tried to also push that saying,
You're taking her time.
It's a really great point. It's a really great point, Ms. Jewett.
Okay.
So I do want to make sure, since Rich is not here, I don't think he's here. I do want to make sure that you all are aware that the Centers for Advanced Studies also offer, the biomedical track, which allows students the opportunity to be engaged in this and other things, but it's not the early college track per se. It's an application process. I'm hopeful that we will be able to open more seats next year, given we never expected. Maybe we should have the response to it, but we will do our best to expand opportunities as we can, including changing what we offer at the centers to best meet the needs of the community. Dr. Clamp, do you have anything to add?
Well, the early college does target a specific population of students who may be first-generation college student, as well as an individual who's willing to commit fully to a collegiate level experience for almost 4 years. So they start in with some introductory coursework, and then they move right into those collegiate level dual enrollment classes. So we want to be thoughtful in the way we recruit students to that experience, while also expanding, as you've seen earlier, dual enrollment experiences across all campuses. So certainly very thoughtful to be sure that we've got seat expansion while also seeing that expansion of dual enrollment opportunities across the system.
It's a fine balance, Ms. Jewett, because these students are taken from their neighborhood schools and so it goes to some of the other concerns that the trustees have expressed in general about fortifying neighborhood schools and making sure, and our principals do feel some sort of way about, taking their babies from their schools to schools of choice. But we believe in opportunities for kids. It's just it's a balancing act for us as district leaders, making sure we're providing access and opportunity while also making sure that similar opportunities are available at the centers and in the neighborhood schools. So noted, we'll write it down and do our best to expand to the extent that we feel that we can. Yes, ma'am.
And then what are obviously we saw in the reports that a lot of the biology is kind of where we're, what are we doing to?
It's a great question. So Mr. Rodney Moore, he's not here this evening, but I'm going to ask him when we talk about biology again to be here. And Mr. Costner, do you want to talk a little bit about the plans? I was in a whole big group of people welcoming back new teachers, and I presented what I knew about this data to the greatest extent that we could present. The numbers have been, they're not released yet. And he was in the back and I didn't know it. He said, we've got a plan for that. He stood up in front of 500 people and said, we've got it covered. So Jamie, you want to talk a little bit about what Rod and his team are doing?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So a couple parts to it. Part number one, just this morning, myself, Dr. Clamp, a lot of our department leaders were really looking at the strand data to identify what are we doing really well and where do we see the greatest opportunity is as it goes to fourth grade, sixth grade, science for SC Ready, but also the Biology 1 EOC. We don't think our scores are a high school problem. We see it as what work we have to do in elementary and middle school to make sure the kids are prepared when they take that Biology 1 EOC. We've set up different support systems at the school with different PLCs happening. We've identified 2 specialists for the C&I team that are working with elementary schools where normally they've really kind of had to split their time between social studies and science. Now we've got 2 dedicated supports for all of our elementary schools. We've got a middle school person and a high school person. So they're working with our schools that may not have seen the biggest increases with our biology scores. They're working with them to make sure their teachers have everything they need. So that's a kind of a couple of things. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
No, yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
I was actually hoping that it was going to be brought
Very
down to
specific. Yeah,
well, I think a lot of times it starts when they're very young.
it does.
Um,
And Ms. Jewett, to be very honest, again, our job is to make sure the board is equipped with the information. We focus so much on reading and math. We want to make sure that we don't leave science and social studies behind, particularly at the elementary schools, and grades 4 and 6 are tested. Thankfully, we saw increases in those areas, but we're re-emphasizing that with the addition of specialists to target those areas this year.
and then just remind me what fuel stands for.
So fuel, go ahead, Dr. Clamp. Nope, I saw you. Go ahead.
Buffy, you help me if I mess up.
Now look,
Fuel.
you reach for the microphone and then.
No. Buffy,
What's
I
wrong
see
with
that.
you?
Fuel is focus, understand, engage, lead.
There you go.
So it's a-
Dr.
it's
Klein,
a-
yeah.
Appreciate that.
You
It was a
better push that
collaboration
microphone.
of leaders. I didn't come up with that. It was a collaboration of leaders to really put a focus on our countywide principal meetings. So what will we accomplish together? And then how are we empowered to take that work into action when we go back into our buildings?
And it aligns with our 212 theme for the year, Mrs. Jewett, which is, water's hot at 211, but it boils at 212. So fuel helps that. And these monthly meetings are really our principal countywide development sessions.
And then I guess my last one was to follow up on that. Are you looking at maybe coupling like a successful principal with,
Yes, ma'am. So
Yeah.
exactly. So
mentorship?
on the 11th, when these plans are due, the associates, and again, Dr. Williams and I were just texting about this. I think the first text I got from you was 6:15 this morning or something, or maybe it was yesterday. The days kind of run together, but that's exactly what we're doing. Dr. Williams, some of the associates, Ms. Simmons, Jamie, will be looking at those plans to be thoughtful about how we group those principals with a strong leader, like Mrs. Haynes will likely lead a session because she is so well versed in the 90-day planning process and her work with them. Ms. Simmons will be leading a session. Mr. Costner will lead a session. So yes, ma'am, the answer is yes. And as early as 2 weeks from now.
I think peer leadership is a really good.
Really important. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the thoughtful questions.
Mr. Grabowski.
I agree with Ms. Roberson and a lot of other board members. I really don't care about the state. I know we set high goals, so I'd rather see the closing of the gap. I think, and that doesn't affect embargoed information. You can still tell us how we're doing.
Not quite yet, not until the numbers are released, and we'll show you that as soon as they are. Yeah, and
this is the reason I'm bringing this up is that, I attend an awful lot of community meetings, and this comes up as to everybody goes, okay, East Cooper high score, high scores, and it's not true. I mean, we do have high scores, but we also have an underachieving group. So closing the gap at individual schools is very specific.
And
There
what's
is
gonna
a
be-
gap at Wando, there is a gap at.
There's a gap everywhere.
Out of
And-
our schools.
Yeah, and there's a gap nationwide, there's a gap in the state. What's great and what we'll be able to share when the embargo's released is how the gap is really closing in Charleston. Now, did it get created overnight and we're gonna fix it in a year? No. But do we have strategies and a board support in place to do just that? Yes. The gap's smaller than it's ever been, and we're really proud of that. But again, we've still got a lot of work to do. Nobody's saying that our aspiration is South Carolina. This is what South Carolina's released, and that's why we're sharing it with you in the public tonight. But our goal is to make kids globally competitive. And I'm really, really proud, and I want principals and teachers to hear this. I'm really, really proud of the work that they've done and the strides they have made to close the gap.
So this comes back to, and I'll be, ever since the spring, I love this new issue, really looking at the truancy and,
Absolutely.
disengaged parents and being able to somehow monitor that, Dr. Coakley, so that we can see that and that we're putting our resources in, the right areas. Because I really think, as we've proven, and I'll be expecting upon you and staff to be coming up with reports showing how we can, help those areas where we do have that high number of disengaged parents. And
We're doing everything we can, Mr. Grabowski, and we're looking for even new outside the box ways to address that. And I think, most recently we did that with the attendance incentive where we piloted in 10 schools, paying $25 a week to families whose kids were in school every day. And we believe we had a high yield, a high ROI on that. But it's our work. You see, we're 3 weeks into school and we're already reporting to you on attendance. So we're watching it closely and we're doing the best we can to really figure out ways to get kids in school and to keep them there.
And I think I'll hold my questions on the guardrails. I was never a fan of them. However, I'm now starting to see that, at least you got a benchmark to shoot at, which is good. So,
We set really, really, really high goals because again, our goal, I think the state's literacy goal, Buffy, is 75%. Is that correct? Our goal's higher than
yeah, that's what I
75%, as
thought,
you know.
yeah.
So our goals internally, like Ms. Simmons said so well, we compare to how you did last year. We're comparing to what our goals are, and we're comparing to the states. We have a benchmark, and we know other places in South Carolina that are getting it, that are doing better than we are. York, for example, I mean, it has about 5,000 students, but I think their literacy rate's 83%. Ours will be about, well, I shouldn't say what it'll be when the embargo's lifted, so I'll stop myself, but it'll be higher than 65%, what's been reported with all students now. But I think you make a lot of great points. But again, know very clearly that this is based on the state's release here, and that our goal is to make kids globally competitive.
So,
The scores are, incredible.
I appreciate that. I want principals and teachers to hear you say that because they really are.
In all the schools I've
Yeah.
visited, I mean, and all the principals I've talked to, I mean, it really, we are on the right
Yeah.
track. Except for work, but it's that truancy issue that just it just annoys, it's annoying.
Yeah. Principals and teachers need to hear the board say that because they're working really, really hard. This is hard work. The achievement gap, the opportunity gap wasn't created overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight. And that we're achieving at the highest level that we ever have in Charleston with really significant challenges in the most diverse district in South Carolina and one of the most diverse in the Southeast is really a credit to the work of great leaders and great teachers who believe that kids can learn. So I'm proud of them, and I know you are too.
Dr. Temple and Mr. Hollenshed, I don't see a raised hand, but do either of you have questions?
I could let Ms. Temple go first, Dr. Temple go first, and I'll go after her.
I think my colleagues have asked a lot of good questions. Let's keep moving forward. I know that the biology folks are working hard. I attended the professional development session, and I agree, looking at what elementary and middle school kids are learning in that strand, as well as, every other strand of science is critical and important. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with some of the new biology efforts going on at high school. I'm going to give a shout out to the stall biology teachers because they were there in force as a team, and I enjoyed working with them.
And you were there too, and it meant a lot to them and to our team, Dr. Temple, that you were there and so supportive. So thank you for being there again. The district has made incredible gains. It's seen increases across the board, except for biology, where we saw the 1.7% dip. It's on our radar. All the areas are, and we promise to keep working hard to get kids where they need to be.
All right, Mr. Hollenshed.
Ms. Huggins, I want to congratulate you and staff, first of all, but, I think you said it all. I think Ms. Robeson made some good comments earlier. Taking a look at the snapshot of today and what you see a year from now, 2 years from now, also going backwards. I've seen that we had some gains in the past. And so I know you talked about, sustaining that and making sure that you build on top of that. And I like what you said when you talked about it's just not about the weighted student form. There's a lot of other factors involved in that. So again, kudos go to you to recognize that and address that ahead of time, because we look at those numbers right there arbitrarily and don't realize there's more to it to that to make the growth happen and to sustain it. So again, going back to what you were saying earlier, I'm not going to prolong it. This ain't about me. I like what you're doing. Continue on, and just basically looking forward to see what happens 6 months, 7 months from now.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hollenshed. We appreciate you and we appreciate that support. Again, in no way suggesting that we're where we need to be, but we're better than we were. And we're making continuous improvement. And that's what it's all about. It's getting better every single day for kids. And a lot to celebrate here in Charleston County with the release of these results. But also some harsh truths about how kids are still performing, even here inside South Carolina. So we're committed to improving outcomes for all kids. And I want to thank you and the board, Ms. McKinney.
Ms. Roberson, you had a quick follow-up?
I do. Well, just a question.
Yes,
This
ma'am.
goes right along with the scores and the ranking.
Yes, ma'am.
Less than 10 years ago, we touted having the #1 school in the country.
Yeah.
Academic Magnet.
Yes.
And now we're number 14.
It's 14th, uh-huh.
So is it possible for you to unpack what happened?
So Mr. Perlmutter and I have been talking about that for a year now, actually. And there are some sophisticated metrics behind that. We'll talk more offline about it if that's okay versus in the public, the public view. It's nothing happened. It's, let's talk more about it offline and how that system's derived and, we'll talk about it offline. I'll provide maybe a one-pager to the board on those metrics and how that's aligned. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to know as well.
Yeah, I'll provide it to the entire board. Mr. Perlmutter and I have discussed that at length and Academic Magnet is performing at very high levels and nothing negative has happened there at all. It's how growth is calculated compared to where students started and the entry level requirements at Academic Magnet are already very high. So you have to be able to demonstrate some significant growth in a very sophisticated algorithm. So I can provide it to you and it might be easier just to sit down and talk to Mr. Perlmutter and staff about it one-on-one.
Thank you. I know we touted it for years.
Oh,
#1
bumper
and
stickers.
Yes.
Bumper stickers,
Yes.
they still on people's cars. I know, I've seen it, I've seen them. And I've said to him, are we sure we should put this in the, but Jake and I have been talking about that for quite some time. Epps talked to him too about it, but I think he's probably watching because he was watching the board retreat earlier. And so I may have him sit down with some of you to talk about it more.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you
Ms.
for the
McKinney.
question.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. McKinney.
All right, we will move on to strategic education, Ms. Lieber.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. So we'd like to hear about the Read to Succeed. I will say that this was one of the presentations that I feel comfortable in being presented because I spent some time looking at the presentation, so.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you for that, Ms. Lieber. Good evening, trustees, and to our viewing public. Before we get started with this very brief update on Read to Succeed legislation, I wanted to acknowledge that we do have Susan Rawlings, our former Director for Literacy, on Zoom, as well as Callie Collins. She is a teacher at Lambs, but she also served as one of our site coordinators for summer camp. She has a lot of experience with summer reading camp. And so in the event you had a question or two about logistics regarding the camp, they are on the call. And I want to thank them for being with us tonight. Thank you, Andy. So tonight we are sharing an update on Read to Succeed and summer reading camps. This law is really grounded in improving reading proficiency. Third grade, as a gateway grade, requires that pupils are retained if they are not demonstrating reading proficiency. Implementing the science of reading, providing targeted support to our scholars, as well as the mandatory attendance at summer reading camps are some of the main pillars of this Read to Succeed legislation. Thank you, Andy. As it stands, we saw 400 fewer students who were at risk of retention. We see that as a big positive as it compares from last year to this year. That signals to us that the investments in a guaranteed and viable curriculum, in a solid, standard, universal instructional framework, and the work that's been invested in professional learning communities and data-driven instruction is starting to yield results. We feel like the return on investment is high, as indicated in how fewer of our scholars were at risk of retention in third grade. Next slide, Andy, thank you. So, who's at risk exactly? We had 573 third graders who were identified as scoring at or below the 25th percentile. That's the signal, that's the indicator that a scholar is at risk and in danger of being retained in third grade. The goal, of course, is to accelerate growth to reach grade level proficiency by the end of third grade. Moving forward, students who receive support during the year are required to attend the camp, but whoever's vulnerable in our eyes, whether you make it to fourth grade by superintendent's promotion or you made the threshold score of 489, we still want to ensure that you have the right supports in place moving forward. As a note, we think it's noteworthy. There were a lot of scholars who originally, 573, that qualified, that were eligible for summer reading camp attendance, but they had good cause exemptions. They're listed on the screen just for your information. Those are the limited English proficient kids who've had 2 years or less of English instruction in our country. Students who have IEPs, those are the individualized education plans that signals some type of disability or learning disability, I should say. If you've been previously retained, so on and so forth. So a significant, substantial number of those scholars did have good cause exemptions. Thank you, Andy. So after all of those good cause exemptions were applied, we enrolled 185 scholars in summer reading camp. Once the students are enrolled, the qualifying score that I just mentioned is 489. If that threshold is not met, then families have a final layer of recourse to get their scholars to grade 4. That requires documentation, that requires input from the school teams, particularly the classroom teachers and the principals. Thank you, Andy. At this point, I want to ask Mr. Costner and Dr. Elliott to speak about moving forward next steps, how we intend to support those kids who are still vulnerable, are still exhibiting some signs that they're at risk of not being on grade level.
Thank you, Ms. Emmons. So we're going to go over a couple things on the slide, but I'm going to ask Dr. Elliott, who's leading literacy this year, to go over kind of what an IRP is, so you have a good understanding of what we've asked our schools and our school teams to do. So as Ms. Simmons outlined, everything that happened in summer reading camp, that's only one part of this. The other part is now that kids either got promoted to fourth grade or they were retained in third grade, what are we doing with them now? So every student, no matter what happened, they're being giving an individualized reading plan that Lori will outline in just a second. We've asked school teams to meet with the families prior to Labor Day to review those plans, so everybody knows what's in that plan. What's our goal? What are we doing with intervention? What are we doing with core curriculum? And how are we going to progress monitor that students are progressing through the intervention programs that we've outlined? We've also created reporting groups with our Ready, so we can really track how students are doing on those assessments in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. Not only the students who were retained in third grade, but also the students who got promoted based off of a good cause exemption or because they met a certain score at summer reading camp. So we're looking at that data at the school level and at the district level on a bi-weekly and a monthly basis. And then also, as we go throughout our progress monitoring phases, referring back to the IRPs, what we put on paper over the summer, is it making a difference? And if it's not, what are we doing to really support that student? We don't want to get to the end of the year and feel like we missed the mark on some of these things. So we're checking this bi-weekly at the school and at the district level, monthly as well, and after every assessment that we have. Lori, do you want to talk about the RRP?
Sure. So the individualized reading plans are actually an offshoot of the legislation. The State Department provided us a template this last year for third graders who were retained. We do have the flexibility to sort of create our own version. That was actually the state's recommendation because, again, they wrote specifically to third graders who were being retained, and we're really focusing on the third graders who were retained, the third graders who went on to fourth grade but still need support, but also K1 and 2 before we ever get to this space in third grade. But essentially the plan requires that we just sort of talk about what is that tier 1 or general education curriculum that every student is getting. What are our most recent data sets for kiddos? So things like iReady, FastBridge at K1, as well as teacher collected data, right? Taking all of that into account, we start then thinking about what are the interventions that we will provide, why, when, how often, with whom, all of those nuanced aspects that will contribute to students growing in their literacy abilities. And as Jamie said, there's a very explicit component of checking this often. Where are we? We do have some systems in place already in the district, and with our Panorama MTSS student success platform that's rolling out right now is actually going to be very helpful in knowing on a daily basis where are our kiddos. We're actually working behind the scenes right now so that the process that we would go through in that platform also constitutes the IRP. So teachers don't have multiple ways of doing the exact same thing. So how could we make it more simple so we can spend our time serving kids, not doing paperwork? So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Lori. Andy, next slide, please. So as I spoke earlier about the biology, us looking at strand data, we're also doing the same thing with English data as well. We want to make sure we're looking at grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. What are we seeing across the system as strengths with every student group that we're supporting? And we've also convened a Read to Succeed task force. We've realized this work is much larger than the literacy department. It involves the ML department, the special ed department, the assessment and evaluation department, any department that we could think of. We put together a task force, and we've had several meetings now, but we meet on a monthly basis to, again, review the interventions and review the work that our departments are doing. And that's a little bit about kind of what we've done now and what we're doing in the future. I think that's all we had, Ms. Simmons.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll go ahead and have board questions. Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Kevin Hollenshed or Carol Temple, do you have any comments? Questions?
I do. Does Kevin? I'll let him go first if he wants to.
Take it from.
Okay, one question I have is how many students who attended the summer camps were retained into third grade?
We ended up with approximately 20 who were retained. They didn't get a good cause exemption and they did not meet the threshold score, Dr. Temple.
Okay, and then the good cause exemptions, I understand how complicated that can be, but I'm wondering, even though they have good cause exemptions, that doesn't mean that that excuses or relieves the issue of them learning. So how do you all deal with the students then who have good cause exemptions but still are not achieving?
That's a fair question, Dr. Temple. So as we talked about with SC Ready data, we try not to rely on one indicator, one data point, one metric to make consequential decisions like whether or not a scholar is promoted or retained. And so we meet as a team when we get the end results from summer reading camp as a committee, and we vet what the families have to say, what the principal and the school teams, the teachers, of course, what their input and their feedback is about a particular scholar, and we rumble about whether it's in the best interest of a scholar. It may be somebody who's over age, it may be somebody whose maturity level does not call for them to be retained or promoted. So the short answer is that we do our due diligence, Dr. Temple, to vet these cases on a case-by-case, individual basis, because it's really dependent on the scholar themselves, the conditions around them, the family, home life. It's just a lot that goes into it. But the bottom line is the research tells us that retention is not the most viable course to take when we're trying to close gaps and ensure that students are on grade level. So it really is a last resort. Now, it's the law, so we uphold the state law, but we also use a lot of data, a lot of metrics, and just what we know about teaching and learning to make these decisions on a case-by-case basis.
That makes me feel better about it, knowing that you are triangulating the data and looking at the individual child, because I do know the body of research that retention is not the answer. And knowing some kids who, I know a young man who's never going to read above the second grade, and yet retaining him would have been a disaster. He at least was able to move on and learn new things, to be able to, have a brighter future. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Dr. Temple, Ms. Simmons did a great job explaining that. If Andy could pull that slide back up that had those bar charts on it, we want to be really clear too that this presentation, like some email exchanges we've had, is about Read to Succeed. But I want to be really clear that, will you go to the bar that Ms. Simmons went through, Andy? It's near the front of it, of the slides.
Yeah.
It's not only these kids that, it's not only, these kids are do not meet. So by definition, they fall into this state, legislation. But, be clear that these approaches students also aren't meeting state standard. They're closer, right? But they're still not here. Here's the number of meets and exceeds. So we want to be clear that, Dr. Temple, not only are the students you're asking about, we're watching, we're really watching everybody, tier universals, but then also targeted support. And Dr. Elliott and her team are working with Ms. Simmons and the associates to make sure that we're doing the right thing by all kids.
Do you have anything else, Dr. Temple? Mr. Hollenshed?
I'm fine.
All right, we'll start with Ms. Jewett.
So I was kind of looking at all these numbers. So if you look at 573 students, and only 185 enrolled, that's only 32% which is a pretty low percentage. I guess I just feel like maybe there could be a way to have more. And then also I guess that was actually Ms. Huggins mentioned this, but we can't really just look at the does not meet, because approaches doesn't meet either.
Right.
So technically, of that 400, we increased in the approaches. So that was a 200 student increase, 201 students. So of that 400, 200 still don't meet.
Right. So think about it this way, Ms. Jewett. The summer reading camp, as it relates to Read to Succeed, is the requirement. We still have a duty and a responsibility to ensure that all of our scholars who are lagging in terms of proficiency, that we give them the supports they need, the right supports. So intervention happens on a daily basis in our school teams. Double doses of instruction happens on a daily basis. And so the presentation is just qualifying for you that we're meeting state standards in terms of supporting the lowest scholars. But as a district, we're still shoring up the gaps with all of our scholars who are in need. And the C&I team might want to speak a little bit more about what the plan is moving forward with intervention. But we are taking this really seriously because the goal is to have all of them proficient by 2027. And so to your point, this is just a snapshot of the Read to Succeed camp as it relates to the legislation.
But so why weren't those other 200, or why weren't the 804 that were approaching enrolled, or at least had the option to enroll into the summer program?
So It's not required one, but in years past, maybe for the last 5 years, coming out of the pandemic, we were able to serve and support all elementary kids who we deemed appropriate in summer programming. We have since shifted to more supports during the school year, during the school day, to shore up the gaps, because we're going to get but so far in the summer, right? So the goal is to accelerate, but it's about a 15-day program, 105 hours of instruction. We believe that's necessary for our lowest scholars, but in all, we are providing supports, wraparound supports around the clock during the school year.
Thank you for that, Ms. Simmons. And Andy, could you pull the slide back up? That's the bar graph. Sorry, we're making you work a little hard tonight. One of the things.
Just leave the
Jewett-
bar graph up, Andy.
One of the things, Ms. Jewett, to your point, you highlighted the approaches category has increased since last year. If you look at the does not meet, we feel like we've moved kids from that does not meet in 24 we shifted them to the approaches. We don't ever want approaches to increase, but if it means we're moving kids from does not meet to approaches, that means we're moving them in the right direction.
Right. But then what are we going to do to get them out of approaches? And is it possible to have the summer program an option for the approaches as well, I guess is my question.
So Ms. Jewett, Mrs. Simmons specifically has had a lot of experience with summer programs. The ROI on those is not high. And in fact, so much so, Ms. Simmons, do you want to talk a little bit about how that transitioned to principals and the feedback from principals?
Sure. So I don't want you to walk away from this presentation thinking this is the only summer enrichment or summer learning opportunity that our scholars get. Our school-based teams offer summer camp, tutoring, year-round and during the summer. And so those scholars who are in the approaching categories, as a principal, as a former principal, those were the kids we targeted the most because they have the potential, the promise, the ability to make it over the hump. And so those are the scholars I'm talking about when I say they're getting intervention, they're getting double doses of instruction during the school year. But what we found, and I think my colleague, Dr. Swearingen, can attest to it, she operated or helped us facilitate summer camps for the last couple of years. We're stopping the bleed, more or less, with summer program in terms of summer learning loss, but the return on investment is minimal. It's required, this summer reading camp is required by state law and Read to Succeed, but we do believe we get the most leverage, the biggest bang for our buck when we invest in scholars during the school year at a really high level.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I think in the language, so the state's mandates are literally around their descriptor called does not meet. So we're aware, what you're hearing is we're aware and we're on top of approaches, but the state's mandate and then therefore support only comes for students who are in the indicator called does not
Interesting.
meet. Yeah.
So funding from the state is only interesting.
Commitment of the students and their families.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah. There's a huge issue for every child that, you know, the gap of time between end of school to the new school year, there's a lot learning loss, and it's more significant for this population. So it's very important. And I understand that there's nothing we can do about people not wanting to attend. But if there are kids that do, we should give them the opportunity. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and it's my understanding the schools do.
Which is all I was asking. And it's good for the public to hear this. It's actually great for the public to know the answers to these questions, because they might look at this and think, well, we're not doing anything else. But the fact that you respond to me with all these other options is.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Any other questions for the Mr. Grabowski?
So we talk rate of return, rate of investment. Read to Succeed's funded how?
It's a state funded.
Is it state budget? Okay, so we're using vendors or are we using our staff?
We hire our teachers, CCSD teachers.
Good,
are
we're
operating
hiring
grant.
our teachers.
Mhm.
Are we, just to, when we go on our return on investment, are we tracking them up through fifth grade? I'm really glad to hear that you're starting at first and second. I think that's very smart. But what about, are we're supporting them in fourth grade, which is good. So we've already identified them, so we're providing the support. But what about fifth? How do we see where they're going? Do we have any idea how that, this has affected the fifth graders?
So as Dr. Elliott spoke about, that Panorama Student Success Platform is really going to be a game changer when it comes to this. We're able to put in those intervention plans, those reading plans. So any teacher, a fourth grade, a fifth grade, they can see what we did for that student in third grade. And it allows us to track, to your point, return on investment. We're being really tight as a system on the interventions that we're offering. Are we getting the biggest gain out of that? So not only do principals have a lot to learn from Dr. Rosa, but departments do as well on how we're investing our budgets. So we want to be really clear with everyone that we're trying to monitor our interventions and seeing what interventions working the best with different student groups so we can make sure we're getting the biggest ROI. Lori, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're doing in fourth and fifth grade?
Sure. We're thrilled to share that part of this funding actually goes to also training educators and administrators in letters, which is structured literacy. Yeah, from Louis Emotes. And this year we are able to include fourth and fifth grade teachers. So it was not a must. It was, if you would like to join us, we would love for you to be there. And we did a real big push, especially in fourth grade and fifth grade. We right now have about 175 new educators who are going to join the cohorts this year. And I would say about probably 35 to 40% of them are fourth and fifth grade teachers, which is really exciting.
And to put this in perspective, what's the total third grade population?
Over 3,000.
It's over 3,000, right? And I know this is literacy, but is the state coming up with any ideas regarding math? Yeah, I was afraid to ask that question. Okay. Not algebra, right, or geometry?
Well, so in elementary schools and in secondary schools, we have Palmetto Math Project. So it's new this year. That means schools, depending on how they did with, yes, sir, this year, depending on how schools did with does not meet for math, they're getting extra supports. There's not legislation now the way there is with literacy, but we are getting additional supports. And we had a call last week with Dr. Williams and some of our state supports that we're getting now to really align those efforts. It's great that we're getting a lot of supports, but we want to make sure we're really aligned at the system level so the principals don't feel like it's one extra thing coming into their school. So
it just seems that if you put the two together, maybe the rate of investment or return on investment would be higher. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Any other, Ms. Bailey?
My question is, what tools and resources are we putting in the parents' hands to help their, to help them feel empowered that the school is not just doing all the work, the district's not doing all the work, but putting some power and influence in the parents' hands to help their children?
We are actually working behind the scenes right now for a front-facing webpage that will talk about the law, but talks about the practicality of it in the schools. And we'll have a whole section for our families to have easy to use resources and in which ways they would want to use them based on what they're hearing from their teachers, from the data from the schools. So we are working on that right now behind the scenes. We are also, though, for instance, we shared just last week a slideshow that our educators can use on back to school nights and family nights. And we're being very intentional to make sure that every time we give something like that out, there's something in there for a parent that they can take and they can use at home. So this first time around, we did reference to Storyline Online, which is a space where very famous actors and actresses read children's books aloud, and you can see the print at the same time. It's a very low risk way for parents to have a resource with their students to hear reading and then start to emulate those practices. But it's definitely very important, we know, for our families to have at their fingertips things that they think feel easy too, to help their student become a better reader.
This is free,
It is
provided through CCSD or?
from the AFTA Foundation out there in the world. Yeah, it's just a free resource. Mhm.
Ms. Bailey, we also have a literacy roundtable, superintendent's literacy roundtable, that convenes a group of diverse leaders across our community whose passion is literacy. And we meet to engage and collaborate about resources, not just for our students past the third grade, but even early literacy. So I want to celebrate Ms. Foxworth and Dr. Swearingen and their team who's working with families. Early children, early learning literacy and the family development is very important to us. So this team has done some tremendous work already to help get books in hands of families and children. And so that's going to continue to build the foundation for the children as they enter into kindergarten and then matriculate up through the third grade.
And the reason why I asked that is because when I worked in the primary school at Million Park, we had programs in place to help our early readers. The younger they learn how to read, the better they are when they reach CD in kindergarten.
And Ms. Bailey, just to kind of add on to Dr. Clamp, we also have an opportunity with data conferences coming up. So I believe that's the first week of November. So Buffy Roberts and her team, they're putting together resources. So as teachers sit down one-on-one with parents, they're able to go over, here's where your student is, here's where they're doing really well, and here's what we're working on this year. So they're going to have resources on those days as well, given to them so they know in real time where their student is, so they can help us and support us as we move that student forward.
Okay, thank you.
To this end of the dais.
Okay. You want to go? I guess I'll take over. You want to go ahead, Ms. Robeson, and ask?
Okay. So I don't want to leave this presentation confused. Is this an update presentation? It seems we've done this, right?
Yes.
So you wanted to update us on the law?
So we did this, you're right, some months ago, just preparing for summer reading camp. But we wanted to let you know the results, where we landed, and because there have been some changes, what the new team is going to be doing moving forward.
Okay.
I can actually answer that. It's just because when it gets, my opinion, when it gets presented to the public, it's a fresh new experience every time. So at least having a background to somebody that might actually choose to watch this portion of the presentation doesn't have to watch the one that happened in the springtime.
Okay. So you wanted us to know from this presentation that the law changed and the law is stricter. I'm trying to.
The bottom line, up front,
bottom line.
we wanted the Board of Trustees to be aware that Read to Succeed legislation requires retention at grade 3. It requires attendance at summer reading camp when scholars are at risk, and wanted you to know the layers that a family can take if they want to pursue 4th grade promotion. They don't want their scholar retained. They want their scholar to be promoted to grade 4. That's why we put the piece in about the good cause exemptions and such. So it's essentially just information for the board in terms of what this legislation calls for and how we implement it and make sure that we're adhering to the state law.
Okay. So with that, when we use the term required, is it the same as mandatory?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. So if they fall within that level 1,
right?
I think from my understanding. So before, only the lowest level 1s were required.
Does not meet 1.
Right. But now everybody in level 1.
Everybody in the does not meet 1, does not meet 2, which encompasses all of does not meet.
They have to go to
they are required to go, but they still have the recourse of good cause exemptions that could disqualify them from having to go.
Who came up with the length of the camp? The district or
The state. The state requires a number of hours, and so it's on us as a district to decide, is it going to be 4 days a week, 5 days a week? We just have to ensure that we meet the hour requirements.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Well, I'll have just a few questions. So, one of the things that I liked about this, of course, understanding that there are other programs that help students learn how to read after third grade, having not performed well, was that the the CCSD Educational Foundation possibly can open the window to allow these students that are, if, of course, the board of the Educational Foundation chooses that as a priority, that you could open it up to the approaching students. Whereas right now, this is a state mandated situation.
Thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Lieber. It's, Mr. Prentice is down there certainly, and Mr. Pat Arnold, who's the new executive director of that, is with us tonight too. But the foundation board, could deem, would work with its ex officio members to determine how any philanthropic monies are spent. So typically, we wouldn't want the GOF, that project to support things the GOF could, but it certainly could be a consideration.
Oh, good point. Good point. The other thing is, again, going back to Ms. Robeson's comments about comparing ourselves to a national or global levels instead of just the state of South Carolina. Let's jump out and exceed and not just have constraints.
So again, I think the board has established that we want all of our kids reading on grade level by by grade 5, and so it doesn't get much higher than that. I mean, again, we really want kids, all of our kids, really before they leave third grade, Ms. Lieber, to be very honest with you and the public. Third grade is really the national standard, and what best practice research tells us is that we want kids reading on grade level out the gate, but certainly by grade 3. The reason the boards established these goals because the measurement, the way the state measures beginning summatively in grade 3. So again, we want kids to be really globally competitive. So,
okay. And I guess I've got 3 more real quick comments. One is the suggestion, we talked about it early in the beginning, is like the 3.5 grade, where you're not starting
a great point. I know exactly what you mean. So I think what you're thinking, it's scary for you if I know exactly right, is that the kids who've already repeated third grade obviously didn't get it the first time. So how are they all of a sudden going to get it if they redo it, right? Which is a lot of the data out about retention. So have you considered, I think is your question, like a 3.5 grade for kids who failed, went to summer camp, and then are repeating? And the answer is yes, based on what Ms. Simmons referenced and Mr. Kotzer and Dr. Elliott referenced in these individualized plans, which help meet kids exactly where they are, which might not be at the beginning of grade 3. Please tell me if I misrepresented that, Dr. Elliott or Mr. Costner. Anything you'd like to add?
That we're really trying to make sure we're not measuring progress 3 times a year. We're trying to do it a lot more frequently than that. As we review those plans bi-weekly and monthly, are students progressing? That way, when it gets to the end of the year, it's too late. We've already lost a whole nother year. So we're really working with schools and district teams across all departments to make sure we're invested in that process.
Yeah, and I feel very confident that you've got the right team. I'm going to ask this of Buffy, because I hadn't finished, excuse me, Ms. Roberts, because I haven't finished reading your response yet. And that was about, and again, going ahead and setting the bar above South Carolina, and where it's that random guessing question that I asked you. So 25% is actually equivalent to random guessing. They actually suggest that increasing the bar to a 40% for does not meet, because then you kind of filter out the random guessing. And I wanted her to respond to the board, if that's okay.
Sure. So basically, I think what you're asking is how are those cuts set and why? So South Carolina sets the performance level thresholds for SE Ready through a process that they call standard setting. That's a methodical multi-day process that involves a committee of expert South Carolina educators. So it's a very detailed process that they go through to determine what those levels will be. One of the things that I think is important to know that once the cut scores are established by these teams, then that also will go to the board to the state board for approval. So these cut scores are not set arbitrarily. Like there's a very specific process where they look at those performance descriptors and determine what those levels should be. So I hope that sort of answers your question. I did write you a much more detailed explanation, but that's basically a high-level overview of that.
Yeah, thank you. I think more so that question is like, where's the cutoff? Where's the GCSD stand? And I think, mentioning that maybe the foundation isn't the right place for it, but maybe with the GOF. Anyway, one more question.
Go ahead.
I just had one follow-up. You said the data conferences are in November for teachers to meet with parents. Do you guys follow up with the parents later in the year?
Great question. So part of that IRP process is we don't just meet with them before Labor Day or at data conference day, but as the students are progressing on that IRP, we're providing updates from the school level to the parents so they know. Again, we don't want to get into a situation where a kid's made straight A's but does not meet on a state test. All those updates are happening throughout the year.
So there's another data conference that the teacher has later in the year that follows up with all the parents.
Not on the calendar. I think Ms. Roberts would love to have multiple data conference days on the calendar, but those are more through the informal process. So we have one designated system-wide day, but throughout the year.
We've had teachers ask for follow-up.
Perfect.
So maybe it would be something that we could look at as a district to even just give the teachers the option to be able to follow up with their teachers.
Well, they
Or
really
parents.
should, I think we can certainly note that, but they really are already, many of these conferences have already occurred, Ms. Jewett, especially for these students. And so there's one designated day to make sure it happens across the system. But for many of these children, that initial conference has already actually occurred, but we'll note that and follow up with our principal cabinet and our teacher roundtable on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ms. Robinson.
Okay, I believe that at the beginning of the presentation, Ms. Rawlins was introduced as being online. Is she on?
She's on there.
Ms. Rawlings is.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Let me
And I
ask you-
apologize, it's bedtime at my house, so y'all probably hear the twins screaming.
That's fine. I know that you've been doing this for a while. Just a quick question. Do you consider the summer reading camp an effective intervention?
So like Ms. Simmons mentioned, the rate of improvement is tricky, figuring out and really being impactful for scholars across the system in such a short time. What we have seen success with is it does get some kids over the threshold of 489, but it's important to know that 489 is still just at the 25th percentile for spring. Of third grade. And so it's not grade level. And so while we are able to accelerate growth in just 15 days of instruction is what our camp was this year, it's really, you have to think about it as 96 hours. And so any parent would be excited to hear that their scholar was going to get 96 hours of targeted reading instruction and intervention, which that is the state requirement for the time for summer reading camps. So we are able to accelerate growth, but most significantly, I think that what we've seen over the last many years is that we might not grow scholars as much as we would like. We always want to increase our student outcomes, but we have seen a benefit and a reduction in summer slide for students who do attend our camps. And so, that is impactful. If a student is behind, right, stopping the summer slide or minimizing it does have a tremendous impact as we move into the next school year.
Okay. So your answer is yes.
All right.
Thank
and
you.
That will give back to the chairwoman.
Would you like to go over item B with paper and pencil?
Oops. Yes, so the paper and pencil survey or the
Thank you, Ms. Lieber. Ms. Roberts will overview this annual request for you all. Ms. Roberts.
So thank you for providing a little bit of time this afternoon to,
Except
I'm
I
sorry.
perhaps should maybe back us up. And since this will be a motion to advance to the board, should we have the motion, a second, and presentation and then vote?
Yeah, fine.
May I help you out?
Please do.
Ms. Lieber, I would like to move to advance to the September 22nd, 2025 board meeting for consideration to approve the paper and pencil assessment waiver.
Second that.
So thank you for providing a little bit of time this evening to talk about the CCSD paper pencil assessment waiver request. This is an annual request, like the superintendent mentioned. The Education Accountability Act does require computer-based testing for SE Ready, except for our students with individualized education programs that specifically specifies that a student would have paper pencil testing, also a 504 or an individualized language acquisition plan. South Carolina, however, does allow schools to indicate technology deficits or some kind of challenge that would allow them to be able to request this waiver for paper pencil. So based on our principal input each year, we ask our schools where the need might be. I'm very, very happy to report that this year we've had a huge reduction in schools that have asked for this waiver. We actually only have 4 this year. Those schools are C.E. Williams, the North Campus, 6th grade only, Frierson Montessori, grades 3 through 8, Minnie Hughes Elementary, grades 3 through 5, and Northwoods Middle, grades 6 through 8. Again, last year, I think we had 11 where the state actually only approved 2 of those after we sent in the request for the 11. The 2 that were approved last year were Minnie Hughes and Edith Frierson. Those were the 2 schools. And then the year before that, we actually had 17. So again, 4 schools is a big improvement, I think, in heading in the right direction of what the state is mandating. And so we just request that you advance this so that we can submit that waiver.
Does anybody have any discussion? Online? So can we come to a vote? Do you want to do it through the board? So I'll take over. Anybody opposed?
It's on your computer.
Oh, sorry.
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead, would you like to say verbally, or have you already? Mr. Hollinshead? Without him answering, we'll say he abstained.
So 8 yay and Mr. Hodgehead abstained.
Oh, I don't see that.
Go up to your upper corner where it says show voting, upper right-hand corner, a little block.
I'll just say, oh, I see. And the
Okay.
motion carries.
Yep. There you go.
Mr. Hollinshead would have to say he abstained. If you just would
He
count it
did
as.
electronic. Oh,
Okay, all right, got it.
did he not vote electronically?
He didn't answer either.
Okay. So it
No.
still passes.
And I'll give that back to the chairwoman.
All right, thank you. Audit and Finance, we will, due to Ms. Watley's illness, Mr. Grabowski stepped in,
Recovered,
so
thank you.
I'll turn over item 6 to Mr. Grabowski.
Thank you, Ms. Huggins, for sharing the
I'm
love.
sorry, Ms. Watley.
It's been a while since I've had to do this. So financial update. It's July, so seasonal, timing shows a slight difference between expensive. Mr. Prentice isn't here? Good. I have no one to check this one. It's so with the start of July, obviously our expenses, there's a slight little gap, and we expect that between our expenses and incoming revenues. On the student weighted fund, I'm pleased to report. Oh, you're back. Student weighted formula fund, I'm pleased to report, according to Superintendent Huggins, that all the allocation requests. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And
Congratulations.
yes, sir, over 90% of the funds have been encumbered.
That is super, super good news.
That's much better than last year.
And Head Start, excellent. They're operating under the compliance level, so compliance in expenditures.
Yes, Board Member Bobrowski, do you mind if I ask a question real quick before you move away from ways?
Sure.
Mr. Prentice, I'm not sure that most are aware, but that we changed away from the ratio for the weighted student formula. Would you mind elaborating on that, please?
Sure, and I apologize. I thought I had more time to run to the restroom with the paper and pencil waivers, and I apparently did not.
Personal privilege, mister.
Personal privilege.
And you know I'm going to rip through this report.
Took a point of personal privilege there. As I see, our parliamentarian has decided to do the same.
I think he's gone too.
It's called a point of privilege. We learned that, point of privilege. You need to raise your point of privilege.
Yep. Yes, so on the weighted student funding for FY26, we went to a per pupil allocation. For FY25, we started with an allocations basis, which included the average teacher salary multiplied by the result of a mathematical calculation based on the number of pupils enrolled in each of those three student groups. It was much more complex. And so this year, we take the 45-day enrollment from the prior school year within students with disabilities, multilingual learners, and pupils in poverty, and multiply that by a per pupil amount within each category to yield the amount that the school gets within that category. And the thought there too is it helps the school administration understand more how the dollars are generated so that they're investing those dollars into supports for those student groups more directly. So as Ms. Huggins indicated, over 90% of the funds, is at like 98% actually is the number of the funds that have been encumbered for FY26 in plans. And we've also launched a new internal dashboard that creates a scorecard for every single strategy at every single school that looks at the per pupil cost of the strategy, the summative informative measures, and the SMART goals so that we can look at post-assessment data compared to those strategies and understand their efficacy. So we're going to be working with some partners as well as the Edunomics Lab to evaluate the outcomes at the end of this school year, and we'll be able to provide more robust reporting as a result of the thought that's gone into this year's plan.
Have a question? Yep.
And really, the great thing about the Audit and Finance Committee meeting this month was there was nothing but information. So that's why this is going to be very brief, with the exception of one executive session.
Ms. Roberson's going to ask a question.
You mentioned scorecards, and so I'm going to assume that those are the cards for that they're going to use to evaluate the CBOs or vendor services.
It could be. So if, for example, if a school, one of their strategies was tutoring, and they wanted to use external partners for tutoring, that we would look at the cost of the tutoring services and the summative informative measures and the post-assessment data and the per pupil cost of the number of the pupils that they serve to evaluate that. We recently actually did an outcomes-based contract request for proposals, and I believe we've onboarded 19 different tutoring companies with agreed upon hourly rates that will provide services kind of as a toolbox resource for weighted student funding plans. And so they can select one of those vendors. And so in addition to the scorecard for the weighted student funding efficacy, the vendor is agreed to receive only a partial payment for baseline data, and then they receive, essentially additional compensation for reaching various performance metrics associated with that outcomes-based contract. So the contracting and, as well as the scorecard are all tied together. So hopefully that should help the schools achieve those goals more directly. But then as well, if we had a CBO that we were partnering with and there was a metric that was associated with it, we would have that data too.
Okay, so all of that, my question is, last month, there was a sole source list that had some CBOs on there that's providing services to schools. Will they be required to complete scorecards as well?
So the scorecard is only for weighted student funding for each strategy that each principal selects within their plan. The CBOs will be required to complete the funding reports that we did last year by January 31st.
Okay, even the one on the sole source.
Yes, any CBO will get a letter based on their vendor classification on our system, and they'll have to do that report on services provided, which includes some organizational information as well as some district-specific information. And then, like we did last year, if they don't provide some form of a report by that deadline, then we'll send out letters and coordinate and provide that information to the board.
Okay, so there are two different groups, right? The one that applied with the application process, and then the ones on the sole source. So you're saying all of them?
So, and not all of them would be on the sole source list. I mean, there's other CBOs that we would partner with, depending on the type of service they provide, that could have been an exemption, or that they could have been procured as a result of a request for proposals or some other competitive means. But all CBOs, regardless of procurement method, will be getting a letter to provide that report. It's just that those that are weighted student funding are also being evaluated through that weighted student funding process via the scorecard, and then all CBOs in general would get that letter.
Okay, and for me, my question is solely based on return on investment. I want to see what we are getting for the dollars.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
And it goes beyond weighted student funding and the application process, because there's Title I and other special revenue in there as well. So that's why we say regardless of procurement method or funding source, we'll run a report.
Thank you.
I got a question. On the graphs for the weighted student funding, I see expanded and balance. I mean, expanded versus available balance. I see some of the schools had the little red mark on the end. What does that mean?
So, and I'm glad you brought that up, and let me go pull that attachment up real quick. Just scroll back to that part of the agenda.
Wait, which slide are you on?
There we go. I got it. So this report is new for FY26, and I wanted to highlight that. Our business intelligence team did a phenomenal job reworking the presentation of this information. So you'll notice this is very different from what we've shared in prior months, since this is for the month of July. So this is broken down in total WSF appropriations by geographic area, which are the former constituent areas, the learning community, as well as within each individual school. So the gray bar in that case, or depending on the page you're on, the green or the orange bar or what have you, is the total amount of funding appropriated to that school or that learning community or that area. And then the red shows the amount that's been expended to date. So of course, during the month of July, wasn't a substantial amount of expenditures, but as those expenditures post month over month, you'll see that red bar grow and shade in the other color. On the very last couple of pages, you still have the charts, which are also color coded the same way. And so as Ms. Huggins mentioned, you'll see the total appropriation in the actual, and then the amount allocated in the column next to it, any encumbrances for purchase orders in the column after that, and then the actual amount expended following with the available balance. So with weighted student funding, we consider the funds kind of encumbered in the sense of being pushed aside for a particular program and a strategy or plan, and then any unallocated dollars are dollars that the principals at those schools would need to consider allocating for a purpose, and we continue to monitor that throughout the year to make sure those dollars are allocated. So realistically, as you get into the first couple of months of the school year, where you see that $36,072,000 in total appropriations at the very bottom and $35.7 million that's been allocated, next month we should see that number grow even closer to the total amount appropriated, so that every dollar is allocated for some specific purpose.
Thank you.
On to the highlights of this Audit and Finance meeting was the various audits. And to put it all in perspective, when the outside auditors came in and presented their report, the tool that they were looking at was 3 major construction projects, 63 sole sources, 1 emergency, procurement cards for 2 months. And Mr. Prentice, you can correct me on that one, but it was 2 months of procurement.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was the pool. And with all that, looking at, they came up with 1 little exemption, which was noted in the report, which was a a work repair to the buses. But when you look at the date, it was 5/23/25 when the invoice was kind of submitted. The work was done in 2025 fiscal year, but the payment was carried over because it was so close to the end of the year. They made a mistake. That was in violation of a procurement. And so when you think of the size of our budget, to have one exemption out of that type of pool, it's really, really, really good. So I hand it to staff, all the way down the line, to see that kind of audit. That's pretty incredible. I will leave it open for any questions on the outside audit before I get to the internal audit. On the internal audit, we're spot on. And I guess the big focus is on IT, right, Mr. Prentice?
So the audit that we presented this month was the internal audit for budget, but there were no findings, so we just presented the report as information. Really pleased with that outcome. Some of the things that the auditors cited were the automations in the process that have been enhanced for FY26. So a lot of those things are humming right along as they should. But we did include the internal audits finding matrix. So all the audits that have been completed to date, we have all the compliance matters that were addressed in those audits listed for you. And as those items are cleared, we'll continue to update this list and provide it at each time we have an internal audit report that's presented through the committee to the board. So you can see there's a few outstanding items in IT right now, but the items in capital programs and payroll have been cleared. Budget, of course, there's nothing to add to the list. And then next month, we will have our student activity fund and accounting audits that we'll share with Audit and Finance and bring to the board in October.
And that is it.
I just want to make one comment. Mr. Prentice, I shared with the ladies on the agenda setting meeting for Audit and Finance that you weren't able to join us, but I just congratulated your team and everybody. You guys are absolutely crushing it. I could not be more proud of the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Hollenshed, policy.
Is he still on?
I'm here. I just had a problem hitting the mute button. Let me get to my screen. Madam Chair, let's see. That was not it. Okay. So, at A, policy BEA, live stream for board origination, legal services. So therefore, Madam Chair, the motion is to advance the policy BEA to the September 22nd, 2025 board meeting for consideration for approval for its first reading. And now, after I get a second motion, after this motion, then we'll let staff take over from there.
Second.
Got it.
Where's staff?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hollish. We're going to ask Ms. Thompson, our staff attorney, to review policy BEA. I'm sure board reviewed it in advance. Perhaps, are there any questions about it that we can clarify? Stop coming up. This is a new requirement. If you attended the recent South Carolina School Board Association meetings, you learned about this. Ms. Thompson, anything to add?
This was pretty straightforward, given the fact that this board is already live streaming its board meetings. We're just putting the policy in place because we're required to do so before the first of the year. So this is just mirroring the language of the new legislation that requires us to have this policy.
Okay, so the motion has been made in the second. All those signify. It's been made in second already. All those signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Oh, she put it on the screen. I'm sorry, y'all.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you're waiting for the tabulation. I can't see.
The tabulation.
Okay. I did say yeah, because I don't see where it's popping up.
Pressed it twice. It's unanimous, Mr. Hollenshed.
Okay. And then B is, Madam Chair, and that staff's gonna get into this more in detail, but it's the motion to advance G policies to the September 22nd, 2025 board meeting for consideration for approval for its first reading. So now I'll let our staff attorney go through each one of these, because I know y'all may have some questions, or at least want a brief, brought up to speed on that. So after I get a second on this motion.
Second.
Okay, the motion made in second, and staff attorney.
Yes, sir. The first policy up is policy GAA, school-based allocations. This came out of Mr. Prentice's office, but I think this was just in an effort to clean up some of the language. And you'll see some reference there to adding the deputy superintendent there in the accountability section. And then in paragraph 5, you'll see some of that kind of required language about Title I, the supplementing versus supplanting it kind of comes along with most Title I requirements there. But if Mr. Prentice has anything else to add.
Nothing to add. I think the most substantive change here is just the note that we do not allow supplemental funds to replace district mandated staffing, which follows federal law.
And moving forward, policy GBC, staff compensation. The addition here is their paragraph 3, where the new Educator Assistance Act that was passed at the end of the legislative session requires districts now to notify teachers of their expected salary when they're given their contract. And then if there's any reduction in the funding for the district, they have to receive an updated notification. And then finally, once everything is settled, once all budgets have been approved, then the district has to make available the any final salary schedules there. So that's the main addition to staff compensation. Moving forward, the next one is policy GBE. This was a much needed addition to our policy manual. You'll see in paragraph 4, the addition of the last bullet point there that says, as a condition of employment, each employee shall immediately notify their supervisor of any arrest or conviction. This probably, I think we all thought that this was in the policy manual somewhere, and it wasn't.
I thought we took care of that last year.
So there is a policy where employees have to reveal any arrests related to drug or alcohol, but it didn't encompass the larger issue of arrests past those 2 issues.
But we didn't expand it to like domestic violence and things like that.
There's another policy you're referencing about the clearance of employees.
Oh,
But this is a little different.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got that covered last year, and then this updates this to make sure that we're notified of any new pending criminal behaviors while employed. Yes, ma'am.
The other one is prior to, right?
Clearance. That's right, Ms. Stewart.
Gotcha. Thank you, Ms. Huggins.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Ms. Thomas.
Well, while we're talking about clearance, do you, I think we covered this last year also, that you like maybe annually or periodically redo the background checks to check for that kind of stuff?
I'm gonna send it down to Mr. Brigman to give you a quick update on that. Mr. Brigman?
So yes, ma'am, we are doing a rotation of 5 years, SLED report, as well as our national background check.
Okay, I vaguely remember that conversation. Thank you.
And it aligns with teacher certification renewal, Mrs. Watley, so we do all of that at one time.
Okay, thank you.
And also, I just wanted to note that at the bottom of GBE, you'll see a reference to Act 77 of last year, which was the legislation that abolished the constituent districts. I'm just pointing that out because our policies that you all updated to take out the references to constituent districts are still pending being updated online. So they've been processed here. We've sent them to the School Boards Association. We're just waiting on that bulk to be uploaded. So when you go online, you will see a discrepancy there. But you all have done everything you're supposed to do. We've done everything we're supposed to do. We're just waiting for the School Boards Association to have some time to kind of fix that large amount of policy.
They can't put a disclaimer on that? I mean, it's a simple fix. Come on.
You know,
I mean, legally, that's insane. I mean, they should be told to put a disclaimer on their website and clean that up. You should not be posting bad policies that are already approved.
Well,
That's
We'll follow up with them, Mr. Bobrowski.
We'll send a.
We need,
We'll
we need to
follow
raise
up
that
with
up
them.
with them. It's very simple. They can put a banner saying these are being updated, but for the liability of the district, yeah, being updated, it's just a simple little banner. I know it's a lot of work, but but that you just can't have bad.
We appreciate
policies.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
We'll reach out. The next policy is policy GBEA, Employee Ethics, Conflict of Interest. There, I think our ER team wanted to go back in and add some information in here that would clarify the language about using any confidential information that you gain through your employment with the district, that you couldn't use that for any personal profit or any personal gain there. So those were just two clarifications there in the middle of that policy. And I believe that was the extent of the revisions to GBEA. Yes. The following policy is policy GBEB, Employee Conduct. And this one is the main revisions are there to paragraphs 4 and 5, where you'll see the information that's been added about the personal life of an employee becoming the concern of and warranting the attention of the district. They added some more information there to clarify when an employee's personal life could be a problem that the district may choose to address. They also, in paragraph 8, expanded the the phrase supervisors to employees in positions of authority to make sure that anybody engaging in unprofessional behavior, that would extend to not just people in an immediate line of supervision, but anybody else in a lower position. And then finally, there was an addition there to an action that could be considered a violation of district policy, which would be capturing images or audio of students without proper authorization. So that's the final edit to GBEB. The next one is GBEBB, Employee Conduct with Students. And the only addition to there is paragraph 4, and that is adding former students who are still minors to the group of folks that employees are strongly discouraged from interacting with on social media sites. So not just current students, but former students who are still minors. That was the only edit to that policy, GBEBB. The next one, only one minor edit to the acceptable use policy, GBEBD. And that was at the very end, paragraph 22, where our IT department added that only authorized software, applications, and browser extensions are to be installed on district devices. Very simple addition there. The next one, there were some revisions to the tobacco-free workplace. Here, they added some of the pieces about electronic cigarettes, vapes, things like that have been added.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So this is something we tried to initiate over a year ago.
Oh,
it was the vaping thing. So yes, thank you.
Great.
Sorry for my excitement.
No, we covered this. And also, this policy is specifically about a tobacco-free workplace, and there was a lot of language in here that didn't apply to employees or contractors. It applied to visitors, students, and parents. And so they narrowed this one down to just apply to employees because there are other policies that deal with making the district a tobacco-free district across the board. I think that was and then we added at the very bottom, some concern had arisen that this policy was prohibiting people from using any sort of a tobacco or nicotine cessation product. And those, of course, are not prohibited. You can wear a patch or chew gum or something like that. Those are not prohibited by this policy, even though they do contain nicotine. That was the end of the tobacco-free workplace. The next one, policy GBGD, workers' compensation. They made some changes to the second option for employees who have suffered a workers' compensation injury, making sure that they clarified that employees can use their accrued sick leave or annual leave in place of receiving workers' compensation benefits there.
And Ms. Thompson, if we could go back quickly.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
To GBED, there was one more edit in the very last paragraph after the number 19 that you mentioned.
Yes.
In paragraph 21.
On paragraph 21. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank
That's
you.
okay.
Thank you so much, Ms. McKinney. This is again, some of that reference to the electronic smoking devices. That would be something that is prohibited on campus. Thank you. I missed that one.
That's okay.
So we talked about the workers' compensation. I think that, yes, that is the end of them.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes,
So
sir.
therefore, the motion's been made in second. Are there any questions?
I don't see
Hearing
any
none,
hands raised.
ma'am?
I do not see any hands raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So therefore, you hear the motion's been made in second. There's no questions. All those signify by saying aye. Tally.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Chair, you can tally it up.
Well, if none are opposed, I assume it's unanimous.
Okay, and that concludes the policy committee.
Thank you, Mr. Hollenshed.
You're welcome.
We are on to other business. Item 8A, review of student discipline management. Dr. Coakley.
Good evening. Thank you. We're going to go over our data from August 2nd to August 9th. If we can move, we can go to the second slide. It talks about the data from 24-25 school year. So we were able to close out all leftover discipline hearings, readmits or enrollments for 24-25 leading into 25-26 pretty quickly in August. The presentation, when it comes up, is going to show you that there were 58 cases between August 2nd through August 30th. And with that being said, we're talking about student discipline hearings that were left over for the end of the year. Any student that was expelled in 24-25 and need to have a readmit hearing, those admit meetings were also held between August 2nd and August 30th. We also had, in addition, enrollment. So typically our constituent boards would have conducted enrollment meetings for students who were expelled at another district and were attempting to come into CCSD at this time, or if they were coming from DJJ, Department of Juvenile Justice. So the CCSD discipline hearing panel they were able to conduct 58 of those meetings between August 2nd through August 30th. And I'm just telling you, the numbers have already changed even as of today for the increase. So really working hard with the members. Let's talk about this current school year. So we look at the current school year, how many discipline packets we received as of last week. There were a total of 11 packets submitted for our schools, and we have the numbers listed for 14 different incidents. So the 11 and 14 are not going to line up to be the same numbers because the 11 is the number of expulsion packets that were submitted. On each of those expulsion packet, it lists the code of the violation that the student committed. So you could have had a student who had 2 violations for 1 packet. Does that make sense? So in this case, we had 11 expulsion packets for 14 different codes, and the codes are listed. Even though you see the numbers for West Ashley High School, I want to make sure that I preference this because Dr. Brandt and I have spoken. Dr. Brandt's numbers are reflective of summer criminal offenses that took place, not in school offenses that took place since school started. So there are particular 700 criminal cases that we will process even if they're summer incidents. And those incidents could be attempted murder, or rape. So we do have those cases in our district that we will address. The 11, when you see grand total of 11 with the infractions being 14, the 3 cases that we have not been able to conduct is because those students are currently detained, okay? Once those students have been released, then we will conduct the hearing because we want to be fair for due process, make sure that we understand that student side. You go to, I think it's the 4th. Okay.
I just shared the
Go ahead,
Canva with you,
Diana.
Mr. Pruitt. If it's easier to grab it that way, this diligent is a little bit challenging.
It's hard to read.
It's very hard, yes.
So for the next, you guys want me to keep going?
Dr. Coakley, you were saying, I was trying to figure out how to navigate this diligent. You were saying the other offenses, criminal 700, that's the like major felonies, rape, murder.
So these are our level 3, 700 off-campus criminal offenses. So typically during the school year, we're always going to address 700 offenses. Those are considered criminal offenses. During the summertime, we isolate what those 700 off-campus offenses are to a small amount of criminal offenses that we will address. And so we did have 2 schools that experienced some high-level criminal offenses that we are conducting hearings for.
Off school.
Off school campus. Yes, it's important to make sure we understand those are incidents that occurred off campus, so they won't necessarily go against the school district or the school when we talk about our data, but we do have to address it because those are high level offenses.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll keep going. So on the next slide, we talk about those same 14 offenses that have occurred, and we talk about what are the outcomes. So you will see that we do have students already assigned for illicit substances, students who are currently detained, 5 pending. The pending could be, again, 4 students who are currently detained, or at the time of the submission, the data was due last week, Monday, and the hearing might have been taking place on Tuesday. And again, it's daily changing. And district probation for the remainder of the school year. Appeals, Mr. Douglas leads our appeals for the school year. We have had 2 appeals so far this school year, and those 2 appeals have been for last year incidents that occurred that the CCSD discipline panel had to conduct. The reason for those appeals, just to be very transparent, is because the families felt like enough time had passed between the end of the school year and school starting and did not believe that their children should have consequences for their behavior. But it doesn't matter when the consequence or the offense occurred, accountability is still expected. So Mr. Douglas has conducted 2 appeal meetings. I can report to you all that his response time with the appeal has been within 24 to 36 hours. So we're seeing a really good return on what we have set up as far as when we conduct the meetings and when we move forward with the appeal. And then that last one is just what questions do you have? And I placed a reminder of what we agreed to be for that disciplinary hearing process for you all, and that we are sticking to that agreement. Mr. Grabowski.
I told you so, Mr. Grabowski.
It was such a great presentation, but I timed you.
That's why I kept
I
going.
have no questions, with one exception. Is this, it, and I.
Wait a minute, you're not chairing. I have.
I know, I have.
You're out of order.
Go right ahead.
Is this, not that I don't love listening to you talk, and you do an extremely good job, and stuck, so you're great. You guys are good. But is this something that we will, like Mr. Prentice has been able to do with all the various dashboards? I'm not saying we should or should not. I'm just out of curiosity. Is this something we should be posting, so the public would know, or is it better to have it in, this format?
I would say at this time, not so. However, with our panorama data, when we talk about student safety, when we're looking at our school
Right.
report card, the data is already posted. We know
Got it.
exactly what's happening in our schools. And you all received the Board of Trustees discipline report. We just released the end of the year report. You'll get the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter report. Absolutely.
Great work.
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay. You asked for it. Are there questions for Dr. Coakley?
Yes.
The second to last slide is zoned areas, and I guess any of the slides that you have, that's the district, correct?
That when we say zone areas? Yes. Mhm. Yes.
Just confirming I understand.
Great question. Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Lieber?
I think my only question would be duration. Some of the kind of outlying, each step should take X amount, and when they go over, kind of like That's the only thing I'm missing that I believe we asked for maybe in the.
It's in the last slide. It says.
So the last slide is where I posted again what we agreed to for the duration of time. We are adhering to that. As you all get the quarterly report, which is that thick report that we sent out, that's where you're going to get the full breakdown.
All right, well, thank you.
Yes,
Sorry, can't see.
that's okay.
It is pretty small.
We're going to do eye exams for the board at one of the
The staff
meetings.
needs it too.
Health benefits for the
That's
board.
exactly right.
Health benefits for the
We'll,
board.
we'll set the example for our students.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Oh.
ma'am. We're really proud of the work that Dr. Coakley and Mr. Douglas are leaving. We're getting good response from parents and our school leaders. So Dr. Coakley, thank you, and Mr. Douglas.
I think the commendation partly is the turnaround time that we have not experienced in the past, which helps the student, the parent, and the school.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what I was going to comment on was the expediting of the process.
Yes, ma'am.
Instead
Yes, ma'am.
because we would have kids come to us that had been out for X amount of time and then, then we have to take them back out of school so I think this is much better.
Dr. Temple or Mr. Hollins, I'll call on you one at a time because you keep deferring to each other. Dr. Temple, do you have any questions?
No, thank you very much for the report, Dr. Coakley.
Thank you.
Mr. Hollins had any questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Coakley.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions in the room?
I just want, I have one thing, is highlighting when our milestones haven't been met and how I think that's critical. So if it's outside of a window of 2 days, it's not going to meet the deadline as requested. I don't know if that's it'd be nice for the board to get an email like, hey, we've got one student who's, right now is on a trajectory to complete their process in 5 days or something.
So we've committed to be transparent with the board, so we will provide periodic updates. We won't email about individual cases. You might recall from our earlier conversations that it's really necessary for us to try to maintain your role and our role in case you have to make decisions about situations with students later. And so we are committed with Dr. Coakley as leadership and Mr. Douglas to providing updates to the board, very transparent, honest numbers. And then if you have follow-up questions on that, we are committed to answering those to Mrs. Lieber. So I'll talk to Dr. Coakley about what makes sense, whether that's a monthly report in the board brief or a quarterly report at a CAL or board meeting, and run it by you all and go from there if that's suitable, Ms. Lieber. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other questions? Bravo and thank you.
Thank you.
On to agenda item 8B.
Madam
Is there-
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to advance to the September 22nd, 2025 board meeting for approval of the Charleston County School District Education Foundation bylaws.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. We will now have discussion. Does Mr. Prentice, do you want to address this or Ms.
That's
Huggins or
great.
both of you?
Ms. McKinney, we've got some slides. Andy, you don't have those either? Lord have mercy. Ms. Mills, can you share that with Mr. Pruitt? It's hard for him to pull it up because it's all connected. So we're delighted to welcome Pat Arnold, who has extensive experience in this work and who has been working for the last 2 months with some national and local thought partners on putting together what you see tonight, which are bylaws for the Educational Foundation. We have a quick slide presentation for you to sort of overview the content of the bylaw presentation. I'll turn it over to Mr. Prentice, who can start with the vision and mission of the district, which really is to support kids and public schools. Public schools. This doesn't have anything to do with privatizing schools, creating more charter schools, but supporting kids in the system to elevate outcomes. I think Ms. Lieber asked a question a while ago about, well, could the foundation maybe support summer camps for all kids or kids approaching? And it possibly could. the work of this group is to figure out ways to support kids that perhaps the GOF typically might not, like the attendance incentive, for example. So now that we found the slides, Daniel, I'll stop talking and you can take it away.
Thank you. So brief presentation to go over this at a high level, and then of course the bylaws are included and enumerated by section for review. But the vision, the Education Foundation would be to create an environment where every student has the opportunity to make their dreams a reality. Very simply put, as Ms. Huggins indicated, is to support students in public schools in Charleston County, and to really complement the mission of the Charleston County School District, not to try to fill any gaps that the general operating fund or other supports can't provide. And beyond that, in the mission, we want parents, teachers, students, and all schools to succeed through philanthropy, industry, and partnerships. And when you look right now at what we're able to do with the Academic Project Fund and some of the fundraising initiatives that are in place, we're really only looking at a very small piece of the universe of what we can do in Charleston County in terms of bringing in industry partners and philanthropy at a higher level. We believe that right now we're bringing in about $200,000 a year in limited philanthropy and partnerships through the gala and some of the things that we do to support the Charleston Educators Symposium and other programs throughout the year. And we believe that we can achieve a seven-figure fundraising profile to support programs and different initiatives throughout the school district. So that's the vision and the mission. The next, there we go, purpose. So this is detailed in the bylaws, but again, at a very high level, we see the foundation as a mechanism to fuel innovation throughout the district. A lot of really successful educational foundations throughout the country use their foundation to pilot programs, whether it's an academic program or a technology program, and then to take those bold ideas and bring them to scale. And so if we can do things with the foundation that might be bolder than what we might do through tax dollars on behalf of the district, and find success in those initiatives and then bring them to scale throughout the district and support them as tested with public dollars, we see that as an opportunity. We also see it, again, as I mentioned, to complement the general operating fund, not to backfill things that we should be doing with public dollars. And again, as an opportunity to engage partners in industry and philanthropy directly tied to CCSD schools and students. So all of these things being kind of major high-level initiatives of the foundation, and as stated it in the bylaws as well. So from a governance standpoint, this would be an independent 501c3 organization aligned with South Carolina nonprofit law. It's important here to draw a distinction that really we could establish a foundation such as the Friends of the Charleston County School District or something of that nature external of the Board of Trustees and then have a liaison such as Mr. Arnold's position to work with that organization. But we thought that it was most prudent to bring bylaws to the board that would create an entity that would give the board a certain span of control. So for example, in the bylaws, the Board of Trustees has to vote to approve changes to the bylaws. The Board of Directors of the foundation cannot do so unilaterally. And additionally, the dissolution of this entity, if such was ever necessary, the Board of Trustees has to approve dissolution and would be able to direct where remaining assets would go so that some third-party detached nonprofit entity couldn't direct the assets to go outside of the school district to another nonprofit as the law blandly allows to happen. By doing it this way, it also would require that an independent audit is completed and it would be classified as a component unit of the school district. So all of the financials of the foundation would be rolled up in the financials of the school district and presented transparently. And the staff is being tasked to generate a policy manual that would detail conflict of interest, compensation, document retention, gift acceptance procedures to align with best practices. With the board, the way this is envisioned to be established as stated in the bylaws is there would be an initial 14-member board. Each board of trustees member would have the ability to nominate and appoint a member to the board as well as the ex officios that are listed. So you would have non-voting, the superintendent, the CFO, two actual trustees from the school board, a principal, and I think this got cut off, as well as a teacher. So potentially our teacher of the year or some other teacher leader throughout the district that would be able to be involved. And then after that initial phase one Board of Trustees appointed board is established, the board would be able to grow itself to a maximum of 35 members, which would include other investors or partners that come into play to support the foundation. Bless you. That would be able to provide technical expertise or guidance or support. Some large organizations through their structured giving programs or investor programs require some level of engagement with the board that they are involving themselves with. And so this would allow that conduit to happen. On the next slide. So this is just a graphical representation. Starts with the school board, the trustee appointments and the ex officio members ultimately compile the foundation board of directors. And then once that is in place and we get through what's envisioned to really be the first couple of years of operations, the board of directors of the foundation itself could begin to appoint additional members to that maximum 35 member board goal, sort of like or board cap, I should say, sort of like your Regional Development Alliance or your Metro Chamber of Commerce has an expanded board of directors for the purposes of what we've already stated. So transparency and accountability. This entity will always be kind of a creature of the Charleston County School District based on the things that I mentioned with the board's control over approving changes to the bylaws, dissolution, et cetera. But during phase one in particular, the entirety of the organization will be subjected to FOIA. Trustees would sit on a governance committee for oversight, and all of the directors of the board would have to sign conflict of interest affidavits to ensure that there's no financial or other type of conflict of interest tied to their involvement with either the school district or the foundation itself. As we move into that second phase with kind of a sustainable administration of the board, some of the components of FOIA would no longer be applicable, but essentially as long as right now the salaries and benefits of the administrative position for the foundation are supported even by donated funds of the district, those are considered public funds and FOIA would be applicable. Once it's fiscally able to support its operations without relying upon even donated funds of the district and its own fundraising initiatives support the administration, then some of those FOIA elements would release because there's no public funds being invested, which is an optimal circumstance to be in general. Any type of compliance related issues once this entity is founded would have to be administered by outside legal counsel. It is an outside organization. Our internal staff attorneys helped us put together the bylaws on behalf of staff and ultimately going to the board for approval. We'd have dual signature requirements for checks and expenditures, and there's requirements in the bylaws that ensure that directors and officers are not compensated, only reimbursement for expenses such as travel and meals, if such is ever a point that comes into play. So funding priorities and guardrails, some of this is tied into the law, some of it's tied into the bylaws, but the foundation can only support district-wide priorities. Right now, we have, as I mentioned, there, the Friends of type entities. There are some Friends of nonprofit entities that exist throughout the district that support one school. And so the fundraising or the giving that goes into that entity supports only that particular school. But with this organization, the design is to create equity so that if someone is providing some type of structured giving for a particular program, it doesn't go to support one type of school, but becomes a greater community initiative that other schools throughout the system, no matter the location of that investment, would be able to benefit from. Again, I mentioned launching and scaling pilot programs and allowing us to invest in community partnership and industry collaborations. We have a number of big industry, business and industry investors. I actually met with the executive director of Charleston County Economic Development on Friday and was talking about some of this. A lot of those big industry partners want to give to nonprofits. Say this kind of tongue in cheek, but nobody wants to give money to the government. So this gives us a conduit to be able to accept private dollars from some of those industry partners that want to even just provide competitive grant programs to a nonprofit entity versus a governmental entity. And we've seen a lot of that. And so this will optimize our ability to apply for those programs with the foundation working back with our grants office. This organization by bylaw and law cannot be used for any individual benefit or compensation, cannot be used for any advocacy, political activity, or lobbying, and of course, nothing that could jeopardize its nonprofit status. So last slide, what Mr. Arnold has been working on as he's talked to the National Foundation and some of the best practice leaders in this work. We've talked to everyone from Dorchester District 2 right next door. Their foundation brings in about $600,000 a year in support So as you can imagine, in a community like Dorchester, while adjacent but much smaller, being able to bring in that level of investment, we see our capacity is much greater, just given the overall Charleston community and the scalable size of it all. But we've talked to York, Horry County, and even ones outside of South Carolina, and looking at, there's a best practices guide that the National Foundation published. So we'd like to conduct a resource inventory to know that what we're looking to raise in terms of funds meets the capacity of the Charleston market, and that, it makes sense, that we're not pursuing something that ultimately the market doesn't support. And we also want to do a needs assessment so that there's an organized approach to how we're going about determining what programs are ultimately supported by the foundation out the gate, to ensure that there's alignment and this is not just a freelanced operation. So all that to be said, there's some legwork to be done after this organization is established. Of course, we would imagine moving things like the gala and our existing programs into the fold of the foundation immediately, and then working with the Board of Trustees and the board of the foundation to conduct that resource inventory and the needs assessment. But we're seeking approval this evening in order to be able to advance the Board of Trustees making their governing board appointments, and beginning really to start to seek some philanthropic commitments. We've already had some industry partners reach out that have seen that this is coming, and we want to be able to have some pledges and commitments to have in the fold as we work on that resource inventory and begin to engage the community. So happy to take any questions and appreciate the opportunity to present.
Thank you. Questions? I have just something that occurred to me, and I apologize, I didn't think of it the first round of reading, but it was a lot to read. When we talk about conflict of interest, that is very important.
Mhm.
My question is, would someone, the definition of conflict of interest, for example, if someone perhaps becomes a major donor to the foundation or makes a beginning gift, would that preclude there being a director? Is that considered a conflict of interest?
That would actually be, if someone makes a major gift, that would actually set them up to potentially be involved as an investor on the board. So we'll be very specific with that. And this has actually launched a greater conversation about boards and commission, or I should say boards and committees appointments. I'm not in county government anymore, but a lot of these, appointments like Audit and Finance Committee, Health Advisory, the foundation, some organizations have a conflict of interest waiver statement, essentially, that anyone that's applying for one of these community representative seats would complete before they're appointed by the Board of Trustees. And so it may be something that we could expand in policy and not just apply to the foundation itself.
And another question, I know it's stated that the Board of Trustees votes on any changes to the bylaws. What about any resolutions that are made by this board? Does the Board of Trustees have to approve any resolutions?
No, ma'am, not as long as they're operating within the confines of the bylaws. So only the changes to the structure of the organization through the bylaws, or of course, any dissolution action or something like that.
Thank you. Other questions?
So that would be similar to the Audit and Finance Committee.
So this would be a little bit different in the sense that this organization would have fiscal capacity to be able to raise funds, process checks, things like that, and would operate in the sense of an organization, whereas Audit and Finance makes recommendations to the board. But the appointment of the membership would be through the Board of Trustees.
Mr. Hollenshed, questions on the bylaws?
No, ma'am.
Dr. Temple?
Yes, I do have a question. I do want to applaud the district for the efforts they've been making to increase the number of partners in the district. The local project has been, really encouraging, and I think the number of partners we've received for the gala is really been great. And I understand why we would want a foundation, but I also have some concerns because I think there are benefits and there, of course, are risks. And and I have concerns, and I do have questions. And actually, I will share my questions, but I'd really like to propose that we have a little bit more time to review this and discuss it, perhaps in a special meeting, so that we make sure that we really do understand everything we're getting ourselves involved with. So that said, one of the questions I have was I was looking for a prospectus, and I'd just like to say I appreciate this presentation that Mr. Prentice just gave. I wish, however, I had been able to see it while I've spent a lot of time researching foundations and trying to understand the full scope of ours. So I really need more time to look at this presentation. The other question I have is, and concern is that this foundation requires a lot of infrastructure and a budget and a staff. And I understand that currently we use the community foundation, and it costs us 4.9% on whatever dollars we channel through them. So I'd really like to know, what is our OI, what is our return on investment? Because this is going to be a big investment. And so, what is our return on the investment going to be when we have this foundation? And when do we decide whether it's effective or ineffective?
Dr. Temple, could I interrupt you just 1 minute?
Yes.
I would like to make certain we are not violating FOIA because you're asking mechanical questions, and the agenda item says that the vote is on whether or not to advance the bylaws. So I don't know that we can tonight with this agenda item discuss anything outside of the bylaws. So I'll look
Well,
to
that's what I
Parliament.
have questions about, are the bylaws, like in the bylaws,
We'll go
where
ahead
are
with your
the
bylaws
guardrails?
question then.
Where are the bylaws in terms of the guardrails? And then I do have a question and concern about the phase 1 and 2 of the board of
Would you
directors.
mind asking just one question at a time?
Well, I could, but
Okay.
so
are there guardrails in the bylaws?
right. Are there guardrails in the bylaws? I saw guardrails in the presentation Mr. Prentice gave, but I don't see some of those guardrails and concerns in the bylaws. So I'm thinking that maybe there's 2 steps here. One, that we approve the bylaws, but also the presentation that he made is giving a lot more details that I think we need to be either committed to or adjust or question that part of it.
Which slide are you referencing, Dr. Temple? Maybe it would help if we pulled that up.
But I think just overall, the guardrails that are in the slides, I don't see all of those items in the bylaws. For example, like one thing is that we're saying, well, there's going to be a needs assessment, but that's not in the bylaws.
Right.
So that's why I think we need a broader discussion here, because there would be either we adopt these 2 documents that have been presented tonight, or we merge them, or something.
Well, maybe we could get a clarification, Dr. Temple. And if I will leave it to staff to answer this question. The motion is to forward the bylaws to the board for a vote. And it's my understanding we have to pass the bylaws to put the operations in place. So is step one to pass the bylaws? And then is step two a detail of operations, or do they happen at once? I think that might clarify things.
Great, thank you, Ms. McKinney. Mr. Prentice, would you like to address that? That is step one, Ms. McKinney.
Yes, ma'am. So the bylaws would enable the creation of the organization and allow the work to begin. We would, of course, want the appointment of the board of directors to occur as well, so that that group with the members that are appointed by the respective trustees and the ex officios could convene to work with the staff, with Mr. Arnold, to go through the resource inventory and the needs assessment. And then ultimately, that would trigger some back and forth conversation between the Board of Trustees and the board of the foundation to begin to identify priorities and start to lay the groundwork. So this right now, of course, the bylaws can't spell out resource inventory, needs assessment. Those are more operational items. But again, we're asking you to approve the creation of an organization that can ultimately be dissolved by the Board of Trustees. And so if the organization gets created and all of a sudden there's no activity taking place, or no resource inventory or needs assessment, of course, which is not going to happen, that would certainly be the board's prerogative to say, wait a second, this is not exactly what we want to do. But certain things have to happen in a certain sequence to enable that work to occur. Because I think the foundation, most likely, our recommendation would be to bring in some of these industry partners from the National Association or from some of the best practice organizations that we've seen to help facilitate some of those initial conversations. And we want to make sure that we have the initial framework in place.
Well, I'll just be honest, I would be more comfortable knowing that just what you said and what is in that presentation on the slide was something that we had massaged and agreed to. So let me go on.
Well, Dr. Temple, I'm sorry. May we go to another trustee and come back to you since you've now had 4 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Oh, and Dr. Temple, to address the safeguards, the 501c3 alignment, the policy manual, and the audit are the 3 safeguards you were referencing? Just to be clear.
Yes.
When we come back. Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Do Mr. Hollenshed first.
yeah, just a quick note, quick question. And I know we're going to approve the policy. I guess for a later date, Madam Chair, just want to know the role of the Coastal Community Foundation in this. I know our CFO just said that, it not being political. And I just wanted to know more of that role in the future. That's all.
Great.
Of its involvement.
So it would never be, and really by constitution of this organization as a 501c3 for the purposes of generating resources for a K-12 educational system, any political or other advocacy would violate the status. You'd have to create a completely different organization to be able, and it would not be proper for such to be created by the school district.
And we would be separating Mr. Hollenshed from the Coastal Community Foundation, altogether in regards to the Academic Project Fund, which is currently managed by that group. Does that answer your questions?
Yes, ma'am. That's you just hit it right on the spot. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And our goal in doing this is, as Mr. Prentice noted, instead of, creating like a Friends of CCSD, to really be transparent about this and come to the board and ask the board's engagement in this process versus doing something altogether separate. So that would be the goal. Again, Mr. Hollenshed, is to separate, completely and allow donors to donate directly to this group.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have a point of clarification before we move forward. I don't want to be, you have one?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, go ahead.
You have a question, Ms. Jewett.
So I have 2 questions. And one is a point of clarification. My understanding was it is a 501c3, so it will be funded through the 501c3. So this is not a return on investment from our current funding. This is actually going to be funded
Correct. This is
Correct. So-
a bolt-on, an
The
add-on to,
director, anything that,
Yes.
so this is not an expenditure per
correct.
se.
And I would say success would certainly look like, going into that phase two in the first 2 years, the foundation generating enough fiscal
Mhm.
capacity to be able to take on the salaries and benefits of the administrative staff to where it is completely administered separately of the district. So, the first couple of years, maybe we pay for the salary and benefits out of donated funds like we're doing now, but, we take that responsibility completely away into the
Mhm.
foundation so that it's completely add-on funding to the district capacity.
By donated funds, you mean?
So we have some miscellaneous donation funds that are administered by the district. So in the budget this year, we appropriated some of those funds to cover the salary and benefits for the executive director position for year one. So they're not taxpayer dollars, but they are public because they're appropriated by the district. And so that's kind of the other piece that ties into FOIA. So ultimately, by having the foundation's philanthropic support pay for the salaries and benefits on an ongoing long-term basis, that would completely separate all of that out.
Okay. And then the other question, just for clarification purposes for the public, a conflict of interest example would be?
Perhaps someone that offers foundation-related accounting services that wants to be on the board and, peddle business to the foundation, or someone that, runs a technology program in emerging K-12 tech and wants to, have their technology program piloted by the foundation as a result of their membership. So essentially, they're not giving anything, but, they'd be getting some business relationship out of it.
Thank you.
Good, great question. Ms. Roberson.
Thank you. Ms. Huggins, I'm going to direct my questions to you. And I'm going back to Dr. Temple's comments and the questions that she asked, and probably to you as well, Mr. Johnson. I think for me, what Dr. Temple was trying to say is that we found out about this through an article that came out in the paper. And so now this is the first time we waited for September for this to be brought to the board. And now we are here, and there, a plethora of questions that trustees may have. Those of us that may have had the opportunity to ask in the small groups, and those of us that didn't. So I think that for me, I don't want to leave here confused by the presentation tonight. I believe that Dr. Temples asked the question because the presentation was for the CCSD Education Foundation, but the motion was about the bylaws. So two things was happening at the same time. And so that's why she asked the questions, which will lead into the same questions that I have. Now, I'm in favor of this foundation because schools in my district don't have the capacity, don't have the building, the franchises to start their own foundation. So something on a bigger scale like this would be great for the Sea Island schools. However, I do have a lot of questions, and we're not going to be able to answer all of my questions here tonight. So what I am proposing is that, one, I want to ask, is this a first reading of the bylaws? If it is, then it's going to be moved on. I would ask that the new executive director create some type of frequently asked question page so that for me, I will be able to go in, ask my questions, and so my constituents and the entire Charleston County will be able to know the questions that I'm asking, and we all will be able to have the answers. I think that if we are going to do something of this magnitude, we need to do it right. We need to be transparent, and we need to make sure that the public understands what we are doing, and not just, what's being said in small groups and behind closed doors. And so and maybe a timeline on how we're going to move forward with this project, because this is major. And for us to be the second largest school district in the state, we should have an operation like this, but we should do it the right way, and we should do it transparently.
But Mrs. Roberson, we really are committed for the public to know and to answer any questions the public has about this. So we'll be happy to set up a system. In regards to the timeline, Mr. Prentice, I know you and Mr. Arnold have had a lot of conversations about that, moving this forward. Your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, I think to answer one of the questions, it's not a first and second reading. The bylaws would be a motion to approve. So essentially a resolve of the board to adopt the bylaws and to allow for those to be used as the basis of filing to create the organization. I think time is of the essence from the standpoint of kind of cleaning things up, if I will. We had a non-board authorized nonprofit from years ago that was created and is now defunct. We have the Academic Project Fund. And so those kind of two things are out there. We wanted to clean that all up, get the Academic Project Fund closed out, move everything into the foundation, and allow it to get through the next year with the gala and everything under this new structure. And I think that's a good example of, kind of what happens when something's created that the board is not, at the forefront of approving. And, obviously the thought work that's gone into the bylaws and everything here in front of you, that will allow all those things to start to happen in earnest. But it just creates the organization and allows for us to then begin to partner back with the board and look at all of the things that the foundation will do. So, I mean, my big ask would be that we at least advance this to the board, have an opportunity over the next couple of weeks to talk through, we can work on the FAQ, we can do a lot of different things before the board takes final action. And then hopefully everyone has a level of comfort going into the board meeting to take that next step and then come back for appointment of governance for the officers.
We certainly can take the questions, Mrs. Roberson, that trustees ask and create sort of a video montage like we did for WSF, a real simple, easy to understand 2 to 3 minute video for the public after we collect all questions from trustees that have been generated by the community and put it out so that the general public can see and understand very transparently, what we're trying to do here. We don't mind doing that at all. Again, and sitting down with you all, however you prefer, or you sending us the questions in writing. Again, however you prefer, we're committed to doing that over the course before the board takes this up for a final vote on the 22nd at its general business meeting.
And so, Ms. Roberson, I appreciate you asking, is this treated like a policy? And so we have now learned it's not bylaws or a vote. I feel like the slides tonight told the public a lot, like it did the trustees, as you and Dr. Temple have noted.
And I
So
do
thank you.
acknowledge that there could be room for question or ambiguity based on the title of our presentation, and I accept responsibility for that and apologize for any confusion there versus the bylaws themselves. And so we'll add some clarity to that for the general public.
But I just think that it would be necessary to have a question, some
Yes.
type of frequently asked questions, so the
Absolutely.
public
We're
will be able to follow along with us.
We're happy to do that. So if trustees want to send us, call us, meet with us, however, if the public can, Dr. Fitzwater, is she still back there? She can send us questions that, and we're happy to, again, she's been a thought partner in some of our work fiscally. So the public can send us questions and we'll put that on the FAQ and make it accessible.
Ms. Watley?
Just real quick, the book that Mr. Patrick was referencing that goes into more detail about the concepts and the functionality of this organization. What was the name of that book?
He's been reading a lot, Ms. Watley.
Son of the librarian, so.
Oh, that explains a lot.
We can send you, and we could provide a copy of them for
wanted it
trustees.
Stated publicly, so,
Mhm.
because I know
He's
that there's
looking it
people
up.
that are going to want to look in.
What's the name of the book?
We're
He's
waiting,
looking
Dr.
up.
Temple. We'll share with you as soon as we get it.
You're fantastic, Dr. Temple.
It's a trigger book.
Mhm. While we're looking that up, Ms. McKinney, do you all have any other questions for us? Dr. Temple, we're getting back with you on the title.
See that.
I do.
Yes, Ms. Leeper.
So one of the questions is, I think was there a term for the board of directors and how long they would be on there? My time is ticking.
2 years.
2 years.
All right. Just some things, I think it'd be easier just to see a comparison chart of phase 1 and phase 2, because I have concern about the impetus of phase 2. I just want to, I love the idea. I just want to kind of voice my concerns to my other trustees and the community is setting priorities for this board or for this function. I don't understand the impetus why we, in phase one, we're in FOIA, but yet phase two doesn't have a FOIA requirement. And maybe there's a fail-safe we could build in here, like having a single board trustee be able to FOIA.
You can answer that question.
Sure, and that's really just the legal nexus to
That's
the
right,
fact
yeah.
that the organization would be completely detached from receiving any public funds. I mean, an entity that does not receive public support just wouldn't be subject to FOIA. And so that's just kind of what happens as things shift from district support to full autonomy.
Well, just because it can be doesn't mean that we should be, if that makes.
But that's the way public-private
It's not
works.
public, it's not public funds.
I'm happy to share Ms. Lieber some context to that and further discussion if you'd like offline, just in terms of how the legal basis for that is established. I mean, we would have to connect some funding mechanism to the foundation to, funnel public dollars into it in some method.
To make it transparent, that's kind of.
Well, and I guess is what are we seeking in terms of transparency? Because the other piece of this is generally accepted accounting principles. When you look at a checklist for how component units are determined, and that's what I mentioned earlier, the financials would roll up in the district's financials because the board has the authority to essentially create and dispose of the organization. That drops to the bottom of the checklist and says, yes, this thing is a component unit of the CCSD. And so at all times, all of the fiscal data associated with the organization will be public through the district's financial statements. Of course, the 990 and all of that information will be public information. So it's really more just the meetings, in terms of compliance with FOIA, in terms of like the board meetings for the foundation itself, and where that requirement falls in terms of agenda publication, that would really go away, because all of the financial information would be public regardless because of that component unit designation.
So like the priorities would a return on investment or a setting of priorities be public?
Regardless of FOIA, I mean, is it in our best interest to make that information public? I think we've talked about, this organization would have its own website, and a lot of, best practice analysis that we've done is those organizations put their strategic plans, their priorities, all of their, outcomes and program support information out on their website, because that's just good practice for being able to engage with investors and to share the story of the success and the efficacy of the organization.
I think that helps significantly. Some other things is I noticed that the trustees are non-voting. That leaves some question, like why not? The other thing is, and maybe 35 members seems like a really inefficient board, question mark.
So, and I understand that point. Because of the nature of the type of organization, a lot of the best practice research that we did indicates that these organizations that are looking to partner with investors have scalable boards to enable growth, but that the board would function with an executive committee that would be kind of the efficient means of administering the business of the organization. But the greater board, like if you look at our CRDA, for example, in the Charleston region, that's a very large board in terms of investor membership and things like that, so that the people that are investing in the organization have a seat at the table. But, the executive committee and that group of, the president, treasurer, secretary, how it's established, with executive committee membership being the members that are appointed by the Board of Trustees, would be kind of the key decision makers from an executive committee standpoint.
Okay.
Bit different of a structure from a public organization.
The other thing is, if I understand, was the conflict of interest only considered in phase one, or that was considered for both phases?
Across the board at all times.
Okay. And I really like pulling on the thread of the Facebook transparency, putting up a post on this on the public forum, and letting the community comment on something like this. Anyway, that's just all I have, really.
Ms. Bailey, any questions? Have I covered everybody? Mr. Grabowski?
I'm obviously, since I made the motion, obviously in favor of pushing this forward, there is another time issue. I mean, these are bylaws. The government's compliance and control issues that are being raised by Ms. Roberson and Dr. Temple. Yeah, I agree with them. I think those would be helpful to see as to how much are actually in the bylaws. I mean, I've seen an awful lot of bylaws in my life, but not so sure that that's as big of an issue. I am concerned about one thing. We are going to place 2 board members on this. And if we're going to place 2 board members on this, like adding another board member to a liaison, that has to be brought up for a first reading in September. If we're going to have the board members in compliance by November, if you're going to have compliance for the board members to be ready to push this through whenever you have it. So it is something you have to consider. At least the board has to consider, and I'll put together a motion asking for that, but we would have to, because we have to appoint them in November to this position. So whether this is in place or not, we have to have that power. So what is the timeline?
So this is a little different since it's another organization. There's many organizations like regional organizations like, the Council of Governments or the Chamber where, a school district can be a member and the district just has to appoint someone to serve. So this would not be under the same policy in terms of appointments to Audit and Finance or some of these other things that are appointed by the board. The board would just make the initial appointments, and as long as the board member remained in their seat as a trustee to term for the first 2 years, then they would be there. And at the point that that term expired, then the board would just be prompted to make another appointment, or if there was a resignation, they would be prompted to make a replacement appointment. So just a different process for ensuring membership, but it would be like the board appointing representation to an external organization as an ex officio.
It's not
Well,
a policy, it's just.
We have a member of the South Carolina School Board Association, so I don't see how you're going to make that anything different. I understand what you're saying, but our policy is very clear that we appoint a member of our board to a private association with the South Carolina School Board Association, which is the same thing. So I respectfully disagree, or we can agree to disagree with your interpretation, but I think it's something we need to be looking at within the next 2 weeks. Because to be in compliance with this, if that is the case, we need to have started the process for the appointment of 2 board members for November. That's all.
Let us review that, Mr.
So
Brown. You make a
question.
good point with Mr. Johnson.
What would be the job of the trustee that's appointed to the foundation?
So strategic guidance, governance, and oversight, making sure that there's a voice at the table for ensuring that the board of directors is considering things that are important to the district and the board. And then also the separate committee of governance and oversight, making sure that, when it comes to reviewing audits and reviewing matters of financial concern, that there's an opportunity for people that are familiar with, policy-driven leadership of the school district to have a seat at the table. It's a really good best practice, whether it be an economic development organization or a foundation, for both administrative leadership and elected leadership to be a part, but not necessarily to be a voting member. It applies some proper internal controls and guardrails.
So question.
Go ahead.
Cool. Let's finish with
Question.
Mr. Bobrowski and I'll come back.
This is just a simple statement. The fact that this board will be voting on bylaws at some point shows the control. But more importantly, once those bylaws are in place, nothing's going to get done to those bylaws without the board's approval.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just, so if you're looking for oversight, there it is. And, we have the right to dissolve it, as Mr. Prentice said, which is a very powerful point. Unlike a lot of nonprofits, should we dissolve it, the funds within the bylaws as they're written are directed. So we're not giving, all we're really doing is, if you think about it, is we're creating something that's replacing the Coastal Community Foundation. Yeah. I mean, so. Anyway.
Can I make one last point?
Mr. Hogshead.
Yeah, well, Mr. Kabrowski summed it up in the end because he asked a question. He complimented Ms. Temple and Ms. Roberson, then turned around and flipped. My question was to our superintendent, if you're saying this is going to be going through policy, then we can work that out then. We don't have to go through all this litigation right now. We can straighten out what we have to do in policy, correct?
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Hollenshed. But when working with other districts, we don't find that other districts have implemented any policies about this and that they've handled it through adoption of the bylaws. So adoption of the bylaws would be the way to go on this one. And Mr. Johnson can certainly advise on some of the matters that Mr. Grabowski and Mrs. Roberson have brought up this evening. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No problem. I
Ms.
call for
Hooper?
I guess my other concern is that a board of trustee in phase 1 and phase 2 should be on this board, especially if there's going to be alignment and opportunity for dissolution, especially without having public meetings. If we're just going to a website and viewing the priority, gives us no impotence to want to dissolve the unit or the organization if it doesn't work in that favor.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but phase 1 and 2 has trustees on it.
I don't think so.
There would always,
ex officio.
there would be 2 trustees
Yeah.
ex officio, and there would always be
The
a
CFO.
member represented
yeah.
from each council district or board member district throughout the county.
And the de facto is a legal issue, and I think we have to look at that. I mean, I know, like as an elected official, I cannot be on a board of the agency, of state agency, but I'm just wondering why it is de facto.
I don't think it would be proper based on the law and the implications from a nonprofit organization to have essentially the enabling primary government to allow for elected members to also serve as voting members.
I just think you just need to clear that up, because I think that's what Ms. Lieber is asking.
And I have one more. Yeah. Just for clarification. So tonight, we are only voting to send the bylaws in its current state to the board meeting.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
In between tonight and the board meeting, we are going to submit all of our questions.
Yes, please.
And we'll have an answer before the board meeting.
Absolutely.
So that we can make so that we can have debate.
Absolutely, absolutely. If trustees could try to submit questions before up until the Wednesday prior to so if trustees could try to submit questions by Wednesday, September 17th, which is when we will post the materials for the meeting on the 22nd, that would be great. Of course, if there are subsequent questions throughout the weekend, we'll still answer them and add them to the document, but it'll give us sufficient time to try to answer all your questions and provide you a document with 24 to 48 hours in advance of the board meeting at minimum. So if questions is a week and a half, give or take, 24 hours, enough time to get questions by the 17th. Today's the 8th.
Yeah, I suspect everybody has their questions already in their mind.
Okay, great. Just send them to us and we will put together a document and a way to be comprehensive about the answers.
The most.
I have one
is
more
the-
comment.
Yes, ma'am, I'm coming back to you. I
Okay.
haven't forgotten. I see your hand.
Okay.
The most efficient way to these questions should be addressed to whose email?
If you'd send them to the CFO and to me, that would be great. And we will work with Mr. Arnold and Mr. Johnson to make sure that we provide comprehensive responses that are aligned with the law.
Thank you. Dr. Temple.
Yes, I would like to ask, why can't the 5 ex officio members actually be members of the board of directors? With 14 people, I actually would like to see all 5 of those who are named as ex officios actually be on this board of directors.
Dr. Temple, we will provide as part of the Q&A a response on that with some proper reference to law and best practice as well. I could answer in figurative terms right now, but I think it'd be good to show you some direct examples, both in terms of best practice and the South Carolina statute that enables nonprofit charitable organizations.
Okay, and then as you're thinking about that question, if not all 5, then some of the 5 ex officio be on that board of directors.
Yes, ma'am.
We got you, Dr. Temple. We'll call you.
I know you will.
Yes, ma'am, you do. I will call you. Not too early either.
Mr. Arnold, do you have the name of that book for Dr. Temple, Ms. Watley, and the rest of the world?
That's what I was circling back to.
Education Foundation.
Can you say that in?
Roadmap to
microphone so-
Education Foundations. Roadmap to Education Foundations.
Thank you.
I tell you what, we'll make sure each of you gets a copy. Amazon.
Well,
From-
let's first see if our local library has it.
Okay.
Save that money. Yes.
Sorry. Just circling back to the financial aspect of this. For the board meeting, can we have full transparency of what funds, where they would be coming from exactly?
And how they're going to be used.
And how they're going to be used. If we're going to be supporting it in phase one, milestone plan as to how we would like to see it phase out, just for full transparency of public dollars.
Sure. And I in the FY26 budget document, I can point to where that is.
Is it in the other financing sources? Because that was going to be one of my questions.
No, that's a object
that?
description. That's essentially transfers in from other funds. It's in it's Fund 844 miscellaneous donations. It's on the other special revenues
Okay.
sheet. I'll show you where it is in the budget book. But that's the amount that supports the personnel and operating costs for the position in FY26. And then once established, we would pay, for the operating cost out of the balance that we transfer over from the academic project fund that we're holding with the Coastal Community Foundation now.
Right.
We'll provide some information on that.
And how much funding is currently in there? Just if you can, you don't have to answer that now, but if that can be part of what,
Sure.
because right here I see 31 million and I'm like, are we?
No. That's
Which is why I was asking.
that's the
You know?
transfer out of the general fund to the weighted student funding fund.
Like-
No. That's a other financing sources as an accounting term for that. Yeah,
We all know exactly where. and how.
absolutely.
Thank
Point
you.
that out.
Thank you.
Are there other questions?
Just one.
I have one more and I'm trying to raise my hand, but I
Right, and
can't
then,
make that
and
work.
then,
Put your hand down.
and I will just tell you all, the chair will call for the question. Go ahead.
We currently have a policy, Mr. Prentice, that says that any donations over $5,000, the board will receive an update. I've not seen an update, so I'm assuming that we've not gotten anything over $5,000. And then part two, would
I
that,
don't want us to get in trouble here
Would that-
asking questions about what's not on the agenda.
would that policy now go away if we create this foundation?
So I'm in consideration of the item, I will say the policy would not go away for the creation of the foundation, because there may still be a circumstance where somebody wants to donate either money or assets to the district in
yeah.
excess of $5,000. So that policy would stay in full force and effect.
Yes, Dr. Temple.
Okay, following up on what Ms. Jewett was asking, I think it would be helpful to understand in our involvement of this is that we already know we have a director. So what other staff and services are we going to need to have an effective start to this foundation? People and money.
Sure, we can detail some of that and provide some, high level composite on some of the fundraising programs and everything, the costs that we would undertake using the existing balance. But I will say that anything that this foundation does in startup beyond the position would come out of the balance from the academic project fund. There's no further appropriations coming from the district. So it would all be coming from those resources and not from public dollars.
We're ready for the question now.
Yes.
And I should have repeated the motion. Excuse me, Mr. Frampton, after it was made and before we discussed. Feel free to interrupt me. So the motion on the floor is to advance to the September 22nd, 2025 board meeting for approval of the Charleston County School District Education Foundation bylaws.
Second. Or,
No,
oh,
we're
I'm sorry,
voting.
it's already been seconded, yeah.
We're voting.
Miss Trudy, my computer is down, so I vote yay.
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 And the motion passes unanimously. So I have a question for our parliamentarian and our lawyer. With the consent agenda, if an item is on that, it usually does not get further discussion. I know from the way I understood things that were discussed this afternoon. So even though this was a unanimous vote, which usually places an item on the consent agenda, do we decide that in the agenda setting meeting or right now that it does go on the agenda for discussion?
Ms. McKinney, in the spirit of transparency, and I'm not the parliamentarian or legal counsel, but the staff would prefer to put the item on the regular agenda for sake of transparency if the board concurs. Are you
I have
okay?
no doubt the board does.
To debate it.
Yeah, so we would prefer.
Well, it's just easier if we have things in the right place without an
Yeah, it
agenda
is.
amendment. So.
Yeah. And Ms. McKinney, may I just say to the board, Dr. Coakley and her team put together this year in review. It's here for your taking. We sent it electronically, but please take it. And we appreciate the board's diligence and patience with us today.
Absolutely. Well, the real patience will come when I turn this gavel over to Mr. Grabowski. But at any rate, on to item C, determining the agenda items moving to the potential consent agenda for the board meeting would be the paper and pencil assessment waiver policy BEA and the G policies. Right. Is there upcoming meetings of the board meeting on the 22nd, the call meeting in just a moment, the committee of the whole meeting on October 13th, and the board meeting on October 27th? Is there a motion for adjournment?
I so move.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Yeah.
Special called board meeting for September 8th, 2025. Do I have, first item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as posted. On to item 2, I'd like entertain a motion to convene into executive session to consider and receive legal advice on matters involving proposed contractual arrangements, student placement, and pending or potential legal claims or other matters covered by attorney-client privilege. Do I have a motion?
So move.
So the motion before the court, got it, is to convene to executive session to consider and receive legal advice on matters involving proposed contractual arrangements, student placement, pending or potential legal claims and or other matters covered by attorney-client privilege. Do I have all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're in executive session. Second? All in favor, say aye.
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 We are back into general session.
Aye.
First action coming out of general section is action 5A is an out of county enrollment request. Do I have a motion?
A motion to grant the student transfer with the
I've been lost.
They put us back in executive session. Whatever.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to put us in open session, and we said that, but now she put us back in executive session.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let's see, maybe I can text Anita, Trudy, that says, I'll tell him that you and I are stuck in executive session.
Mm-hmm. Executive session.
Mm, Nothing yet.
Mm-mm.
I don't know how they did that because I was in the room. Were you in the regular
Yeah, I was in
board
the
room?
room too.
Yeah.